There is a scene near the end of regular show that most people remember as the finale and then move past. Pops Maillard, the strange, gentle, lollipop-headed man who spent 8 seasons being the kindest person in every room he entered, wraps his arms around his brother. Not to fight him, not to restrain him, to hold him. Anti-Pops, the embodiment of pure destruction, the being who has ended the universe countless times before, does not know what to do with this. Nobody does. And Pops flies them both into a star. The park workers watch from a distance. The universe does not reset. For the first time in an infinite cycle, something different happened. Someone chose love over victory, and it cost him everything. That scene aired on January 16th, 2017. The show had been running for almost 7 years by then. And the thing that strikes you, if you go back and watch the very first episode, is not how different the finale feels from the beginning. It is how inevitable it feels. How a show that started with 2 slackers finding a magical keyboard in a bush somehow arrived at a moment of cosmic sacrifice that earned every single tear it asked for. That journey, from a show about nothing to a show about everything, did not happen by accident. It happened because success changed regular show. Not in the way success usually changes things. Not by corrupting it. Not by making it lazy or safe or repetitive. Success changed regular show by giving it the room to become what it always had the potential to be. And what it had the potential to be was something no one, not even its creator, fully understood in September of 2010. This is the story of how that happened. How a show grew up in front of its audience. How the pressure of being one of Cartoon Network's biggest hits forced a creative team to evolve, to deepen, to take risks that an unsuccessful show would never have been allowed to take. And how that evolution turned a very good cartoon into one of the most quietly ambitious animated series of its generation. Welcome to Velvo. Get comfortable, settle in, turn the lights down low. This one is going to take a while, and that is exactly the point. And if you have not subscribed yet, it really does help us keep making these. Let us get into it. To understand how success changed regular show, you have to understand what it was before success found it. And to understand that, you have to go back further than the first episode. You have to go back to a gas station. In 2006, a CalArts student named J.G. Quintel made a short film called 2 in the AM PM. The premise was simple and deeply inappropriate for children's television. 2 convenience store clerks, voiced by Quintel and his friend Sam Marin, accidentally consume hallucinogenic candy on Halloween night. What follows is a surreal, psychedelic trip through animated madness. The short earned recognition at its festival screening and caught the attention of people who mattered in the industry. More importantly, it contained the DNA of everything regular show would become. The character designs that would eventually belong to Mordecai and Benson first appeared in that student film. The surreal escalation, the way a mundane situation spirals into something cosmic and bizarre, was already there. The tone was irreverent but never cruel, absurd but never random, was already locked in. But here is the thing about 2 in the AM PM that matters for this story. It was built on a very specific creative impulse. Quintel was not trying to make something successful. He was trying to make something that felt like his life. The boredom, the weirdness, the way that nothing interesting ever seems to happen until suddenly everything happens all at once. That impulse, that desire to capture what it feels like to be young and aimless, and stuck in a world that oscillates between tedium and insanity, was the engine of regular show. And it was an engine that ran on a very particular kind of fuel. It ran on the feeling of not having made it yet. Think about what that means. The show that would become one of Cartoon Network's flagship properties was born from the experience of being nobody, of working a dead-end job, of killing time with your friend because you have nothing better to do. Mordecai and Rigby are not heroes. They are not chosen ones. Not at the beginning. They are 2 guys in their 20s who work at a park and do not want to do their jobs. That is the entire premise. And in 2010, that premise was radical for a cartoon because it treated the mundane with the same visual intensity that other shows reserved for epic battles and magical quests. A game of rock, paper, scissors could summon a demon. Setting up chairs for a party could tear open a portal to another dimension. The escalation was the joke, but it was also the thesis. Regular show was arguing, from its very first episode, that the boring parts of life contain more chaos and meaning than anyone gives them credit for. The Power aired on September 6, 2010. It is Season 1, Episode 1. Mordecai and Rigby are wrestling in their room with a doll they call Beef Burrito. They put a hole in the wall. They panic. Their solution is not to fix the wall. Their solution is to convince Benson to give them a raise so they can afford to fix the wall. This is the logic of two people who have never had to solve a real problem in their lives. And then Rigby reveals that he stole a magical keyboard from a wizard who was relieving himself in a bush. The keyboard can do anything. They use it to get the raise. They accidentally send Skips to the moon. Everything escalates. Everything resolves. The keyboard is destroyed. Benson takes back the raise. Mordecai and Rigby are told to clean up. That is the formula. That is what the show was. Two irresponsible young men cause a problem through laziness, find a shortcut that makes things worse, experience a surreal escalation that threatens to destroy everything, and then end up right back where they started. No growth, no consequences, no change, just the same two guys, in the same park, making the same mistakes. Season 1 had 12 episodes. It aired between September 6, 2010 and November 22, 2010. The season finale was called Mordecai and the Rigbys. The episodes were 11 minutes long. The cast was small, the world was contained, and the ratings were very, very good. This is where the story of success begins. Not with a dramatic moment, not with a single episode that changed everything, but with numbers. Cartoon Network saw the numbers, and the numbers said that regular show, alongside Adventure Time, was pulling between 2 and 3 million viewers per episode. For a cable cartoon, those numbers were enormous, and they meant something very specific to the people making decisions at the network. They meant more episodes. They meant more seasons. They meant investment. They meant that this show, which was built on the feeling of going nowhere, now had to go somewhere. Because that is what success demands. Season 2 was renewed before the first season even finished airing. It premiered on November 29, 2010, just 1 week after the Season 1 finale. 28 episodes this time, more than double the first season. And this is where the first, almost imperceptible shift happens. Not in the stories themselves, not yet, but in the confidence of the storytelling. The episodes are still standalone. They still follow the formula, but the world starts to feel a little bit bigger. Characters who were background figures in Season 1 start to get their own stories. Muscle Man, who was mostly a punchline in the first season, begins to emerge as something more than the guy who makes my mom jokes. Skips, the immortal Yeti, starts to feel like he is carrying the weight of centuries on his shoulders, not just fixing whatever Mordecai and Rigby broke this week. A Bunch of Baby Ducks is Season 2, Episode 3. It aired on December 13, 2010. The premise is exactly what it sounds like. Mordecai and Rigby are told to clean the park fountain. They find baby ducks inside it. They are supposed to get rid of the ducks. Instead, Rigby bonds with them. The ducks imprint on the two of them. And then, because this is regular show, the ducks combine into a giant humanoid duck warrior to fight an evil collector who wants to steal them. The episode is 11 minutes long. It is absurd. It is hilarious. And it contains, beneath all of that, something that the early episodes of Season 1 did not have: tenderness. Rigby cares about the ducks, not as a joke, not as a bit. He genuinely does not want to let them go, and when he has to, the show gives that moment room to breathe. It does not undercut it with a punchline. It lets Rigby feel something, and it lets the audience feel it with him. That might seem like a small thing. In a show that would eventually send its entire cast into outer space to fight a cosmic evil, one moment of tenderness about baby ducks might seem insignificant, but it is not. Because that moment is a seed, and the entire story of how success changed regular show is the story of those seeds growing into something enormous. The thing about having a hit show is that it changes the ecosystem around you. Before success, you are one of many projects competing for attention and resources. After success, you are a priority, and being a priority means two things. It means you get more freedom, and it means you get more scrutiny. Cartoon Network, by all accounts, was remarkably supportive of regular show's creative team in the early seasons. Quintel has spoken about how the network gave them latitude to push the boundaries of their TV PG rating, to include innuendo and edge that would have been scrubbed from a less successful show. The network wanted them to go as far as that rating would allow. They wanted the show to feel dangerous, because that danger was part of what made it successful. But success also brings the note. The conversation that starts with, "We love what you are doing, but..." And for regular show, that note eventually came. Cartoon Network told the creative team to tone it down, to pull back on some of the more adult-oriented humor, to remember that this was, technically, a children's network. Quintel has recalled this moment in interviews, describing how the network said, essentially, "We need you guys to tone it down and take some of that stuff out." This is a pivotal moment in the life of any successful show. The network has invested in you because of what you are. Now the network wants you to be slightly less of what you are, because what you are makes them nervous. Most shows respond to this in one of two ways. They either comply and become blander, or they fight and become combative. Regular show did something rarer. It redirected. The energy that had been going into pushing the boundaries of content started going into pushing the boundaries of character. If you cannot make the jokes edgier, you make the people telling the jokes deeper. If you cannot shock the audience with what happens, you move them with why it happens. That redirection, that channeling of creative energy from surface to substance, is the single most important thing that success did to regular show. And it happened so gradually that most viewers never noticed it was happening at all. If you are enjoying this so far, subscribing really does help us keep making these. Season 3 is where the evidence becomes undeniable. It premiered on September 19th, 2011, and it contained an episode that would win regular show a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Short-Format Animated Program. The episode is called Eggscellent. It is Season 3, Episode 17. It aired on February 27th, 2012, and it is the clearest early example of what regular show was becoming. The setup is pure regular show. Mordecai and Rigby see a commercial for a restaurant challenge. Eat a 12-egg omelet with chili, cheese, 2 biscuits, and a fruit bowl in under an hour, and you win a free meal and a trucker hat that says, "I'm Eggscellent." Rigby becomes obsessed with the hat. He drags Mordecai to the restaurant. He tries the challenge, and he has a severe allergic reaction to the eggs. He falls into a coma. Stop there. Read that sequence again. A character on a comedy cartoon falls into a coma because he tried to eat an omelet. The show does not play this for laughs. It does not cut away to a quick recovery. Rigby is in a hospital bed. He is unconscious. And Mordecai, standing over his friend, makes a promise. He is going to win that hat. What follows is a training montage, which sounds like comedy. And it is comedy, but it is comedy built on a foundation of something real. Mordecai is not trying to win a hat because he wants a hat. He is trying to win a hat because his best friend wanted that hat, and his best friend might not wake up, and this is the only thing he can do. The show reveals that a former park worker once attempted the same challenge obsessively, keeping a notebook of strategies. Benson, of all people, encourages Mordecai, not with a speech, with the simple act of showing up, of being there. Mordecai completes the challenge. He wins the hat, and the hat, in the end, does not matter. What matters is that Mordecai did something difficult and frightening for someone he loves. What matters is that Benson, the screaming boss, showed that he cares about his employees underneath all the rage. What matters is that Rigby wakes up and sees the hat and smiles, and the show holds on that smile long enough for it to mean something. Eggscellent won the Emmy, and the reason it won is the reason it matters to this story. It proved that regular show could do something that pure comedy cannot. It could make you feel something that you did not expect to feel. It could take its characters seriously without taking itself too seriously. It could find genuine emotion inside absurdity without ever abandoning the absurdity. That balance, that ability to be simultaneously ridiculous and real, was what success unlocked. Not because the writers suddenly became better, because success gave them the confidence, the runway, the institutional support to try something different and know that the audience would follow them there. Think about what that means for a creative team. In Season 1, you are trying to survive. You are trying to get renewed. Every episode is a proof of concept. You lean on what works. You repeat the formula. You do not take risks because you cannot afford to fail. But by season 3, you have been renewed multiple times. You have millions of viewers. You have an Emmy. You have earned the right to ask a different question. Not, will they watch this, but what else can we make them feel? That question changed everything. Season 4 premiered on October 1st, 2012, with a 2-part episode called Exit 9B. And Exit 9B is the show flexing muscles it did not have 2 years earlier. 2 months have passed since the end of Season 3. The park has been seized by a mysterious contractor. The park workers have been brainwashed. Mordecai and Rigby have to restore their friends' memories and save the park from being paved over for a freeway. The episode brings back villains from previous seasons. It has action set pieces. It has stakes that extend beyond a single 11-minute story. It is, in every way that matters, a different kind of regular show episode. Not because it abandoned the formula, because it expanded the formula to include things the formula never had room for before. Continuity, consequence, the sense that what happened in one episode could matter in the next. This is what success buys you. Not just more episodes, but more connective tissue between episodes. The freedom to build something that rewards the loyal viewer. To plant a seed in Season 2 and let it bloom in Season 4. To treat your show not as a collection of standalone shorts, but as a slowly unfolding story that happens to be told in 11-minute increments. Season 4 also ended with something that would have been unthinkable in Season 1. Stake Me Amadeus aired on August 12, 2013. It is the Season 4 finale, and in it, Mordecai finally works up the courage to ask Margaret to be his girlfriend. This is not a throwaway gag. This is not a will they won't they tease. Mordecai, who has been nursing a crush on Margaret the Robin since the show began, takes her to a fancy restaurant and lays his heart on the table. And Margaret, with tears in her eyes, tells him that she has been accepted to her dream college. She tells him that what they have is special, but she may never get this opportunity again. She cannot be his girlfriend. The relationship that Mordecai spent 4 seasons building toward ends before it truly begins. The show does not treat this as a cliffhanger designed to generate buzz. It treats it as a loss. Mordecai does not crack a joke about it. He does not bounce back in the next episode. He sits with it. Season 5 opens with Mordecai dealing with the aftermath of Margaret's departure, and the show gives that emotional process real estate. It does not rush past the sadness to get back to the comedy. It lets the comedy grow out of the sadness. And that decision, to honor the emotional reality of what happened to a character, rather than resetting the status quo, is something that only a successful show can do. Because an unsuccessful show cannot afford to make its protagonist sad. An unsuccessful show has to keep things light, keep things moving, keep the audience from changing the channel. Regular Show, by Season 5, had earned enough trust, from its audience and from its network, to be brave. There is a version of Regular Show that never got successful enough to make that choice. A version that stayed in the formula forever, that kept Mordecai and Rigby making the same mistakes, causing the same escalations, learning nothing, changing nothing. That version would have been fine. It would have been funny. It would have run for maybe 3 seasons and been fondly remembered as a clever cartoon that did one thing well. But it would not have been what Regular Show became. And what Regular Show became was a show about growing up, about the terrifying, beautiful, inevitable process of becoming a different person than you were when the story started. That transformation did not happen in spite of the show's success. It happened because of it. The relationship between success and creative ambition in animated television is more complicated than most people think. The common narrative is simple. A show starts great, gets popular, and then either stays great or declines. Success is treated as a binary. You either handle it or you do not. But the reality is that success is not a single event. It is a continuous pressure, and that pressure reshapes the show in ways that are not always visible from the outside. For Regular Show, one of the most significant pressures was the expansion of the season order. Season 1 had 12 episodes. Season 2 had 28. Season 3 had 39. By seasons 4 and 5, the show was producing close to 40 episodes each. The show went from producing 12 episodes a year to producing nearly 40. That is not a small increase. That is a fundamental change in the demands placed on the creative team. months of work to produce each episode, a dedicated crew working out of Cartoon Network studios in Burbank. Multiply those resources by 3, and you are running a very different operation than the one that made The Power. More episodes means more stories. More stories means you exhaust the obvious ideas faster. Every sitcom, every cartoon, every serialized narrative hits this wall. The easy stories, the ones that naturally emerge from the premise, get used up. And then you have a choice. You can start recycling, telling the same stories with slight variations, hoping the audience does not notice. Or you can dig deeper. You can go to the places that the easy stories never went. You can ask questions about your characters that the formula never required you to ask. Regular Show chose to dig, and what it found, beneath the surface of its comedy, was a remarkable amount of depth that had been there all along, waiting for someone to excavate it. Consider Benson. For the first 2 seasons, Benson is the angry boss. That is his role. He yells at Mordecai and Rigby. He threatens to fire them. He turns red, literally, because he is a gumball machine, and his anger makes the gumballs rattle and his head flush crimson. He is the obstacle, the authority figure, the fun police. And he is funny in that role because the voice acting is excellent and the animation of his rage is endlessly inventive. But he is also, if you are being honest, a type. The angry boss is a stock character. You have seen him in 100 shows. But then the show starts asking why. Why is Benson so angry? Why does he yell? Why does he take everything so personally? And the answers, when they come, are not funny at all. Think Positive reveals that Benson grew up in a household where everyone argued constantly at the dinner table. His father told him, explicitly, that the only way to get anything in life is to yell for it. His father dismissed his hobbies, told him he had no talent, told him to get a real job. Benson became a drummer. He founded a band called Heir to the Throne. He performed what the show calls the legendary drum solo, and then he was fired from his own band and replaced by a machine called the Drumotron Fix. Read that biography again. Strip away the animation. Strip away the fact that this character is a gumball machine. What you have is the story of a man who was raised by people who made him feel worthless, who found the one thing he was good at, who built his entire identity around that thing, and who then had it taken away and replaced by something that could do it better without feeling anything. That is not a comedy backstory. That is a tragedy. And the fact that it belongs to a character who is also genuinely funny, who is also a gumball machine, who is also the butt of countless jokes about being a terrible boss, makes it more powerful, not less. The comedy does not undermine the tragedy. The tragedy deepens the comedy. Every time Benson screams at Mordecai and Rigby after you know his backstory, you hear something different in that scream. It is not just frustration, it is fear. The fear that he is becoming his father. The fear that his life has amounted to nothing. The fear that the only skill he has left is yelling, and even that does not work. That is what success did to Benson. It gave the show enough episodes, enough time, enough creative latitude to transform a stock character into a person. And once you have done that, once you have shown the audience that this animated gumball machine has a father who never loved him and a dream that was stolen by technology, you cannot go back. The audience knows now. They see Benson differently, and the show has to honor that. The same process happened with every major character. Muscle Man went from the park's crude loudmouth to a man who would marry the love of his life in the season 6 finale, dumped at the altar. Skips went from the convenient problem solver, the character who always knew the answer, to a man carrying the weight of immortality, granted to him after he lost the woman he loved. High Five Ghost went from a literal punchline, a ghost whose only purpose was to high-five Muscle Man, to a character with his own relationships and his own quiet dignity. But the deepest excavation, the one that would ultimately define what Regular Show was about, happened with Mordecai and Rigby. And it happened so slowly, so carefully, that by the time you realized what the show had done, it was too late to look away. The early Mordecai is easy to describe. He is the responsible one. Compared to Rigby, he is practically an adult. He does his work, mostly. He has ambitions, vaguely. He has a crush on Margaret that he cannot act on because he is too anxious and too proud to be vulnerable. He is the straight man in a comedy duo, the one who rolls his eyes while Rigby causes chaos, even though he is always right there causing chaos alongside him. The early Rigby is even easier. He is the irresponsible one. He is lazy, impulsive, competitive, and completely allergic to consequences. He dropped out of high school. He cheats at everything. He breaks things and expects other people to fix them. He is the id to Mordecai's ego, the chaos agent, the one who turns "set up the chairs" into an interdimensional crisis. For the first 3 seasons, these descriptions are sufficient. Mordecai and Rigby are a comedy duo, and their dynamic is built on a clear hierarchy. Mordecai and Med is the better one. Rigby is the worse one. Mordecai looks down on Rigby, often literally, since he is taller. Rigby looks up to Mordecai, even as he resents him for it. But success gave the show enough time to ask a devastating question. What if that hierarchy is wrong? What if Mordecai is not actually the better one? What if the thing the audience has been treating as Mordecai's maturity is actually something else? What if it is cowardice? This is the reframe that the later seasons of regular show execute with surgical precision. Mordecai is not more responsible than Rigby. He is more afraid. He does his work because he is terrified of conflict, not because he values the work. He does not act on his feelings for Margaret because he is paralyzed by the possibility of rejection, not because he is being patient or respectful. He enables Rigby's worst impulses because it is easier than confronting them. Mordecai's maturity is a mask, and underneath it is a man who does not know who he is or what he wants, and who uses his superiority over Rigby as a substitute for actual self-knowledge. Rigby, meanwhile, undergoes the opposite transformation, the dropout, the slacker, the one everybody, including the audience, dismissed as the lesser half of the duo. Rigby starts growing up, not loudly, not dramatically, but persistently. He starts dating Eileen. He goes back to high school to get his diploma. He confronts the parts of himself that he has been hiding behind jokes and laziness. And the show, with a patience that borders on audacious, lets this happen over the course of multiple seasons. By season 7, the reversal is complete. Rigby is the one who has his life together. Rigby is the one in a stable, healthy relationship. Rigby is the one who faced his fears and did the hard thing. And Mordecai is the one who is lost. Mordecai is the one whose romantic life is a disaster, who cannot commit to CJ or let go of Margaret, who keeps hurting people because he cannot be honest with himself about what he wants. Think about what that means for a show that started with a clear comedy hierarchy. The guy on top is now on the bottom. The guy on the bottom is now on top. And the show did not do this through a single dramatic reversal. It did it through years of accumulated evidence. Through dozens of small moments that each, on their own, seemed like just another episode. But together, they told a story that was almost invisible until it was undeniable. That is what success made possible. Not a single brilliant decision. 1,000 small ones, made over 7 years. Each one building on the last. Each one slightly deepening the audience's understanding of who these characters really are. No show gets to do that without success. No show gets 7 years and 244 episodes to tell a story that slowly, that carefully. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing. It means more than you know. There is a specific kind of storytelling that only becomes possible when a show has been on the air long enough for its audience to have grown up alongside it. Regular show premiered in 2010. It ended in 2017. The 12-year-olds who watched the first episode were 19 when it ended. The 18-year-olds were 25. The show's audience aged 7 years in real time, and the show, whether by design or by instinct, aged with them. This is not the same thing as a show getting darker or getting more mature. Those phrases imply a deliberate pivot, a conscious decision to change the product for a changing audience. What regular show did was more organic than that. It did not decide to grow up. It grew up because its characters grew up, and its characters grew up because the people writing them were growing up, and the people writing them were growing up because 7 years is a long time, and nobody stays the same person for 7 years. J.G. Quintel was 27 when regular show premiered. He was 34 when it ended. The staff writers who joined the show as young creatives fresh out of art school were, by the final season, people with mortgages and marriages and children of their own. The experiences that fueled the early seasons, the aimlessness, the dead-end jobs, the feeling of killing time with your best friend because neither of you has figured out what you are supposed to be doing with your life. Those experiences were no longer current. They were memories. And memories have a different quality than lived experience. They are softer, more bittersweet, more aware of what was lost when the thing ended. You can hear this shift in the show, not in any single episode, but in the accumulation. The early episodes are the sound of people living in the moment. The later episodes are the sound of people looking back at the moment and realizing it was more precious than they knew. The stakes get higher not because the writers needed bigger threats to keep the audience interested, but because the writers understood, in a way they did not when they started, that things end. Relationships end, jobs end, friendships change, people move away. The park, which seemed like a permanent fixture of the show's world, was always temporary. It just took 6 seasons for the show to admit that. The Margaret arc is a perfect example of this. Margaret Smith, the Robin who works at the coffee shop, is Mordecai's love interest for the first 4 seasons. She is, in the early episodes, exactly what you would expect from a cartoon love interest. She is pretty. She is nice. She is the object of Mordecai's longing. She does not have much interiority of her own, because the show does not need her to. She is a goal, not a person. But success, and the time it buys, changes that. By season 4, Margaret has become a person. She has ambitions. She has a life outside of Mordecai's crush on her, and when she gets accepted to her dream college, she chooses it. She chooses her future over a relationship with a guy who could not tell her how he felt for 3 years. That is not the behavior of a cartoon love interest. That is the behavior of a real person making a real decision, and the show respects it enough to let it hurt. Mordecai's reaction to Margaret's departure is one of the most carefully observed depictions of heartbreak in animated television. In the season 5 premiere, he finds a sweater she left behind and drives hours to return it to her college. He gets there. He sees her, happy, building a new life, and he turns around. He does not make a grand gesture. He realizes that she is happy, and that her happiness does not include him, and he leaves. The show does not have another character offer Mordecai a comforting speech. It just shows you a man letting go, and then it moves on. That scene could not have existed in season 1, not because the writers were not talented enough, because the show had not earned it yet. You cannot feel the weight of Mordecai's loss unless you have spent 4 seasons watching him fail to act on his feelings. You cannot understand what it costs him to walk away unless you know how much it took for him to show up. The scene works because of everything that came before it. And everything that came before it exists because the show was successful enough to get to season 5. This is the paradox of regular show's relationship with success. The show was at its best when it was exploring the things that success threatens to erase. The aimlessness, the uncertainty, the feeling of being stuck. Success gives you resources and security and institutional backing, but it also removes the existential conditions that made the early work feel so alive. And regular show's genius, if we are going to use that word, was in finding a way to explore those feelings from the other side. Not from inside the experience of being lost, but from the perspective of someone who is starting to find their way and is realizing that finding your way means losing the version of yourself that was lost. And that version, for all its flaws, was something worth mourning. CJ first appears in season 3, in the episode Yes Dude Yes, where Rigby signs Mordecai up for a dating service to pull him out of his post-Margaret sadness. But it is in the later seasons that Cloudy J, a cloud humanoid, becomes something more than a rebound. She is everything Margaret was not. She is bold where Margaret was reserved. She shares Mordecai's interests in video games, grilled cheese, laser tag, and action movies. She is the fun option, the fresh start, the evidence that moving on is possible. And Mordecai ruins it, not all at once, not through a single dramatic betrayal, through the slow, grinding, deeply recognizable process of being unable to fully commit to something new because he has not fully let go of something old. Margaret comes back. Mordecai does not cheat, not in any clear-cut way, but he cannot stop comparing. He cannot stop wondering. He cannot stop being pulled toward the familiar comfort of a crush he has already mapped every inch of. And CJ sees it. Of course she sees it. You can always see it. The Mordecai-Margaret-CJ triangle is one of the most divisive storylines in the show's history. Fans argued about it endlessly. Team Margaret, Team CJ, Team neither. The debates were passionate and sometimes hostile. And here is the thing that nobody said at the time, but that seems obvious in retrospect. The fact that the audience cared this much about a love triangle in an animated show about a blue jay and a raccoon who work at a park is itself evidence of what success did to regular show. It made the characters real enough to fight over. It made the relationships complex enough to generate genuine disagreement. It made the show matter to its audience in a way that goes far beyond entertainment. But the love triangle also reveals something less flattering about what success can do to a show. When your audience is invested, when they have opinions, when they are vocal about those opinions, it creates a gravitational pull. The show starts to feel the weight of audience expectation, not in a corporate, focus group kind of way, in a more subtle, more insidious way. The writers know that every choice they make about Mordecai's love life will generate a reaction, and that knowledge, even if they resist it consciously, changes the calculus of storytelling. Should Mordecai be with Margaret? Should he be with CJ? Should he be alone? The right answer to those questions depends on whether you are asking what is best for the story or what will make the most fans happy, and those are not always the same question. Regular show, to its immense credit, chose the story. In the end, Mordecai ends up with neither Margaret nor CJ. He ends up with a Batwoman named Steph, a character the audience barely knows, a character who appears in a flash-forward montage in the finale. The show's argument is clear. Mordecai's love life was never the point. The point was the pattern. The inability to commit, the fear of being known, the way Mordecai used romance as a distraction from the harder work of figuring out who he was outside of a relationship. The show does not give the audience the satisfaction of a fairy tale ending with a familiar character, because Mordecai's story is not a fairy tale. It is the story of a man who had to lose the wrong things before he could find the right ones. That is a brave choice. That is a choice that only a show confident in its own legacy would make. An insecure show, a show that was worried about its ratings, about its renewal, about its merchandise sales, would have given the audience what they wanted. Regular show gave the audience what the story needed, and it could only do that because it was successful enough that the ending was its own choice to make. Success changed the scope of regular show's ambition in ways that went far beyond character development. By season 4, the show had begun experimenting with longer-form storytelling. The two-part premiere, Exit 9B, was a statement of intent. It said, "We are not just a collection of 11-minute shorts anymore. We are a show with a mythology, with a history, with villains who come back, and victories that matter." This experiment deepened in season 5 with Skip's story, which aired in 2014 and carries one of the highest audience ratings of any episode in the series. The episode flashes back to what appears to be the late 1800s. Skips, who was then called Walks, is a young man attending a school dance. He is in love with a woman named Desdemona, or Mona. He has friends. He has a life. He is, in the flashback, completely recognizable and completely different from the Skips the audience knows. Because the Skips the audience knows is defined by what this episode takes away from him. Clorgbane, a powerful immortal, crashes the dance. In the chaos of the attack, Mona throws herself in front of Walks to shield him. She is struck and killed. She dies saving him, not because of any failed bargain or broken deal, but because she loved him enough to put herself between him and destruction. Later, the Guardians of Eternal Youth grant Walks immortality so that he can fight Clorgbane when the Destroyer returns. They ask him to choose a new name, and Walks, remembering how he and Mona used to skip together, chooses Skips. He skips everywhere he goes, not as a quirk, but as a memorial. Every step is a way of carrying her with him. That is not a small thing. The show took a character whose defining physical trait, the way he moves, and revealed it to be the expression of grief so profound that it altered the way a man interacts with the ground beneath his feet. He does not walk because walking would mean moving through the world without her memory in every step. He skips because skipping is what they did together, and every skip is a way of keeping her close. Skip's story is the kind of episode that a show earns. You cannot tell that story in Season 1. You cannot tell it in Season 2. You need the audience to have spent years with this character, to have taken his skipping for granted, to have filed it under weird character trait and moved on. Because the power of the reveal is directly proportional to how long the audience has been looking at the thing without seeing it. The longer the gap between the assumption and the truth, the harder the truth hits. And that gap, that delay, that patience, is something only success can afford. A show that is fighting for its survival does not have the luxury of waiting 4 seasons to explain why a character skips. A show that knows it will be around for years can plant a mystery in Season 1 and solve it in Season 5, and trust that the audience will still be there to appreciate the answer. Success buys time, and time is the most valuable resource a storyteller has. A quick reminder that subscribing helps the channel more than you might think. Season 6 is where regular show starts to become a different kind of show entirely. Not worse, not better, different. The standalone episode, the 11-minute story that starts and ends in the same place, begins to feel less like the show's default mode and more like one option among several. The season starts introducing multi-episode arcs. Character developments carry over from one episode to the next in ways that are impossible to ignore. Rigby and Eileen's relationship deepens. Muscle Man proposes to Starla. The park workers' lives begin to intertwine in ways that feel less like a workplace comedy and more like a family drama. Dumped at the Altar is the Season 6 finale. It aired on June 25, 2015, and it is an episode that could not exist without everything that Success had built. Muscle Man and Starla's wedding. A full episode, double length, devoted to the marriage of 2 characters who started the series as one-note jokes. Muscle Man, the guy who said "my mom" at the end of every sentence. Starla, the woman who was introduced primarily as a visual gag, a mirror of Muscle Man's physicality. These 2 characters, who the audience had been laughing at for 5 years, were now getting married. And the show asks the audience to take it seriously. The episode title tells you something went wrong. Dumped at the altar. The wedding does not go smoothly. There is conflict. There are obstacles. There are the kinds of complications that weddings in fiction always generate, because weddings in fiction are never really about the ceremony. They are about whether 2 people can survive the pressure of committing to each other in front of everyone they know. Muscle Man and Starla survive it. They get married. And the audience, the same audience that groaned at "my mom" jokes in Season 1, feels something. They feel happy for these characters. They feel invested in this relationship. They feel, whether they admit it or not, that these 2 weird, loud, abrasive, deeply imperfect animated characters deserve this moment. And the fact that the show can make the audience feel that, about these characters, after 6 seasons, is the most powerful testament to what Success did to regular show. It gave the show enough time to make you love the people you started by laughing at. The transformation of Muscle Man is, in many ways, the purest example of the show's larger project. He begins as a type, the crude guy, the gross guy, the guy whose entire personality is an elaborate setup for the same joke. And he ends as a husband, a man who has been with the same woman since high school. A man who, underneath all the bluster and the bad jokes and the shirt that he will not keep on, has been quietly, stubbornly, faithfully devoted to one person his entire adult life. That devotion was always there. The show just needed 6 seasons to show it to you. And it needed Success to get those 6 seasons. There is a parallel here to the way Success changes real people, not just real shows. When you are young and hungry and unproven, you perform. You project a version of yourself that you think the world wants to see. You make the jokes, you play the role, you do the thing that gets attention. And then, if you are lucky, you succeed. And Success gives you permission to stop performing, to stop proving yourself, to let the mask slip and show the person underneath it. Muscle Man's arc is that arc, played out across 6 seasons of an animated cartoon. He starts performing and ends being. And the difference between those 2 states is the difference between a joke and a character, between entertainment and art. The thing that nobody tells you about maintaining a successful show is that success itself becomes a character in the story you are telling. Not literally, but the awareness of success, the knowledge that people are watching, that critics are paying attention, that your choices matter, in a way they did not when nobody cared. That awareness seeps into the work. It changes the questions you ask. It changes the risks you are willing to take. It changes the relationship between the creator and the creation in ways that are impossible to fully articulate. For regular show, this manifested most clearly in the show's increasing willingness to confront the idea of endings. The early seasons are timeless in the truest sense of the word. Time does not pass. Seasons do not change. Mordecai and Rigby do not age. The park exists in a perpetual present tense, and the audience accepts this because it is the convention of animated sitcoms. Characters do not grow old. They do not leave. They do not die. They just keep being funny, forever. But regular show, as it became more successful, began pushing against this convention. Slowly at first. A reference here, a consequence there, and then, in the later seasons, explicitly. The show started acknowledging that its characters existed in time, that the park would not last forever. That Mordecai and Rigby would not always be 23-year-old slackers with no plan and no ambitions. That growing up was coming for them whether they wanted it or not. This acknowledgement is, in a very real sense, the show processing its own success. Because success is a form of growing up. It is the end of potential and the beginning of actuality. When you are unsuccessful, you can be anything. The future is open. The show could go in any direction. But once you are successful, once you have defined yourself, once the audience knows what you are and expects you to be that thing, you have closed some doors. You have made choices that limit your future options. You have grown up, in the professional sense, and growing up always means losing something. Regular show's later seasons are haunted by this loss. Not overtly, not in a way that the average viewer would articulate, but the feeling is there, underneath the comedy, underneath the action, underneath the increasingly complex mythology. The feeling that something is ending, that the park, the friendship, the life that Mordecai and Rigby have built together is not sustainable, that it was always a phase, and phases end. Rigby's decision to go back to school is the clearest expression of this. In Season 7, Rigby, the character who dropped out of high school, who has been defined for 6 seasons by his refusal to grow up, decides to get his diploma, not because the plot requires it, not because there is a magical threat that can only be defeated by education, because of Eileen, because he does not think he is smart enough for her, because he loves someone, and that love makes him want to be better, and being better means facing the thing he has been running from his entire life. The show devotes multiple episodes to this arc, the Eileen Plan, in Season 7, Hello China, where Rigby has to pass a foreign language class to get credits, and then the Season 7 finale, Rigby's Graduation Day Special, where Rigby must deliver a graduation speech. And on that day, Mordecai, the character who has always been the better one, the one with the high school diploma, the one who looked down on Rigby for dropping out, cannot handle it. He gets jealous. He drives away from the ceremony. Let that sit for a second. The show spent 7 seasons building a hierarchy between its two protagonists. Mordecai is better. Rigby is worse. The audience internalized it. The characters internalized it. And then, in the Season 7 finale, the show reveals that the hierarchy was never about quality. It was about comfort. Mordecai was comfortable being the better one. It was his identity. And when Rigby threatened that identity by actually improving, by actually growing, by doing the hard thing that Mordecai never had to do because he already had his diploma, Mordecai could not handle it. That is not the behavior of someone who is better. That is the behavior of someone who needs to feel better. And those two things could not be more different. This is the deepest cut that success enabled regular show to make. The show used 7 seasons of accumulated audience assumption to set up a single, devastating reveal about the nature of its central friendship. And the reveal only works because the assumption was so thoroughly established. You had to believe Mordecai was the better one. You had to take it for granted. Because the power of the moment when that assumption collapses is proportional to how firmly you held it. No show does that in 1 season. No show does that in 3. It takes 7. It takes 244 episodes. It takes the kind of patience that only success can buy. The space arc of Season 8 is the most dramatic manifestation of what success did to regular show. And it is, perhaps not coincidentally, the most divisive. When Cartoon Network announced that the 8th season would be the last, and that it would take place almost entirely in outer space, the reaction was split. Some fans were excited, some were apprehensive, some felt that the show was abandoning what made it great, and in a narrow sense, they were right. The show was abandoning what made it great. That was the point. Season 8 premiered on September 26, 2016. The park, the setting that had defined the show for 7 years, is launched into space. Literally, the entire park, buildings and all, is sent into orbit. The park workers, who had spent 7 seasons complaining about setting up chairs and cleaning fountains and dealing with Benson's fury, are now astronauts. The mundane world that the show's surreal escalations always return to is gone. There is no reset button. There is no going back to normal. The show has left the ground, and it is never coming back. This is a metaphor, and the show knows it. Leaving the park is leaving childhood, leaving the comfortable, leaving the place where nothing ever really changed and everything always went back to the way it was. The space arc is regular show's final season because it is regular show's coming of age, and coming of age means leaving home. The serialization of Season 8 is almost total. Most episodes end on cliffhangers. Most episodes pick up where the previous one left off. The standalone 11-minute format, the format that defined the show for 7 seasons, is mostly abandoned. In its place is a continuous narrative about pops, about anti-pops, about the key to the universe, about the nature of existence itself. The show that started with 2 guys trying to get a raise so they could fix a hole in their wall is now asking questions about the meaning of life. Is this a good thing? That depends on what you value. If you loved regular show for its comedy, for its standalone zaniness, for the joy of watching a game of rock, paper, scissors escalate into something insane, then Season 8 might feel like a loss. The comedy is still there, but it is dimmer. It is filtered through the weight of an ongoing plot and the knowledge that the end is coming. The lightness is gone, and lightness was always one of the show's greatest strengths. But if you loved regular show for its characters, for the slow accumulation of detail and depth that turned a group of cartoon park workers into people you cared about, then Season 8 is the payoff. It is the season where everything the show has been building toward finally arrives. It is the season where Pops, the sweetest, most innocent character in the show's history, is revealed to be the most important one. And it is the season where the show makes its final argument about what success really means. Pops Maillard, born Megacranus on the planet Lollyland. Adopted by Mr. Mellard, the owner of the park, who found him as a baby. Raised as a sheltered, naive, endlessly kind human being who did not know that he was the chosen one. The embodiment of pure good, the counterbalance to his twin brother Malum Cranus, the embodiment of pure evil. For 7 seasons, Pops was the joke that was not a joke. He was funny because he was strange, because he talked like a man from another century, because he was delighted by everything, because he did not understand the world in the way that everyone else understood it. He was the character who brought lollipops to a fight, who hugged when everyone else argued, who saw beauty in things that nobody else noticed. And the show, across all 8 seasons, never once punished him for this. It never revealed his kindness to be naivety. It never made him cynical. It never broke him down and rebuilt him as someone harder. Pops stayed Pops, from the first episode to the last. And in a show that was fundamentally about change, about growth, about the inevitability of transformation, his refusal to change was itself the most powerful statement the show made. Because here is what the show argues, in its final episodes, through the character of Pops. Goodness is not a phase. Kindness is not something you grow out of. The capacity to love unconditionally, to see the best in people, to meet cruelty with compassion, that is not weakness. It is the only thing powerful enough to break an infinite cycle of destruction. Anti-Pops has ended the universe before, many times. The cycle is always the same. Good fights evil. Neither wins. The universe resets, and then it happens again. The only thing that can break the cycle is not fighting harder. It is choosing not to fight at all. It is choosing love, and that choice, in the end, costs Pops his life. The finale, a regular epic final battle, aired on January 16, 2017. It was viewed by over 1.3 million people. Pops hugs his brother. Anti-Pops does not know what to do with this. The hug weakens him, and Pops flies them both into a star. The universe does not reset. For the first time in an infinite number of cycles, the cycle is broken, because someone chose something different. Someone chose to love the thing that was trying to destroy them. And then the show plays Heroes by David Bowie over a montage of the park workers' futures. Mordecai becomes an artist. He marries Steph. They have children. Rigby and Eileen get married. Muscle Man and Starla raise a family. Benson finds peace. High Five Ghost finds love. Skips keeps working at the park because the park is still there, because the park was always there, because some things do not change even when everything else does. The montage is set 25 years in the future. The park workers are middle-aged. They reunite at the park. They sit together. They remember Pops, and the statue of Pops in the park, the memorial to the friend they lost, is there among them. The show ends on that image. A group of old friends sitting together, remembering the person who saved everything by loving everything. If you are still with me, subscribing is the best way to support what we do here. There is a question that hangs over the entire final season of Regular Show, and it is a question that the show never directly addresses, but that its structure answers definitively. The question is this: was the space arc the right call? The argument against it is straightforward. Regular Show was a show about the park, about the mundane, about the way ordinary life, if you look at it from the right angle, contains infinite strangeness and beauty. The park was not just a setting, it was the thesis made physical. And when you remove the park, when you send everyone into space, you remove the thing that made the show's surreal escalations meaningful. Because the escalations worked precisely because they erupted from normalcy. A game of rock, paper, scissors is funny when it summons a demon, because rock, paper, scissors is boring and demons are not. The contrast is the comedy. But when you are already in space, when you are already in a high-stakes serialized narrative about cosmic good and evil, there is no contrast. The baseline is already extraordinary, and extraordinary is harder to escalate from. The argument for it is subtler, but ultimately more convincing. The park was always temporary. The characters were always going to have to leave it. And a show that understood its characters as deeply as Regular Show did could not pretend otherwise. Mordecai and Rigby could not live at the park forever. They could not keep slacking off and causing magical chaos and learning nothing and staying the same. That was the premise of the early seasons. And it was a brilliant premise, but it had an expiration date. Because people do not stay the same. People grow up. People leave. And a show that refuses to acknowledge that keeps its characters frozen in an eternal present, is ultimately a dishonest show. It is a show that values comfort over truth. Regular Show chose truth. It chose to let its characters grow up, leave home, face the unknown, and deal with the consequences of who they had become over 7 years. The space arc is not a departure from what the show was. It is the logical conclusion of what the show was becoming. The show was always about the tension between comfort and growth, between staying the same and becoming different, between the park and whatever lies beyond it. The space arc just made that tension literal. And the resolution, Pops' sacrifice, the choice of love over combat, is the show's final word on the subject. You do not defeat the forces that threaten your world by fighting them on their terms. You defeat them by being something they cannot comprehend, by being kind when they expect cruelty, by being soft when they expect hardness, by being Pops. The production history of the space arc reveals something about the relationship between success and creative ambition that is worth examining. Quintel has described the final season as the arc that ends the story. The fact that Quintel was able to plan an ending, to build toward a specific conclusion, to treat the final season as a coherent narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, is itself a product of the show's success. Most animated shows do not get to plan their endings. They get canceled, often abruptly, often mid-season, often without warning. The creators scramble to wrap things up, or they do not get to wrap things up at all, and the show just stops, leaving stories unfinished and characters suspended in mid-development. Regular Show got to end on its own terms. Cartoon Network told Quintel that Season 8 would be the last, which is a painful thing to hear, but it is also a gift. It is the gift of time, the gift of knowing that the end is coming and being able to prepare for it, to make the ending mean something, to ensure that the last episode honors the first episode and everything in between. That gift is the final thing that success gave regular show. Not more seasons, not more money, not more freedom. Closure. The ability to finish the story, to say what needed to be said, to let the characters arrive at the places they were always headed, and to say goodbye in a way that felt earned rather than abrupt. Think about how many shows never get that. How many shows are canceled on cliffhangers, their stories half told, their characters abandoned mid-journey. Regular show, because it was successful, because it earned Cartoon Network's respect and loyalty over 8 seasons, got to end with Pops flying into a star, and David Bowie playing, and a group of old friends sitting in a park, remembering the best person they ever knew. That ending is a direct product of success. Not the success of the finale itself, but the accumulated success of everything that came before it. Every viewer who watched The Power in 2010 and kept watching. Every kid who bought a t-shirt. Every Emmy voter who chose Eggscellent. Every rating point that justified another season. All of that success, all of those years, all of that trust, culminated in a show that got to say goodbye. And the goodbye was worthy of the show. That is the rarest thing in television. Not a good show. Not even a successful show. A show whose ending is as good as its beginning. A show that finishes the argument it started. Regular show did that. And it could only do that because success gave it the time, the confidence, and the freedom to grow into something worth ending well. There is another dimension of what success did to regular show that deserves its own examination, and it has to do with the show's relationship to its own formula. Every successful show develops a formula. That is not a criticism. A formula is what makes a show recognizable. It is the set of conventions, rhythms, and expectations that allow an audience to settle in, to know what kind of experience they are about to have. The formula is the contract between the show and the viewer. And regular show's formula, in its early seasons, was one of the most elegant in animated television. The formula goes like this. Mordecai and Rigby are given a simple task. They do not want to do the task. They find a way to avoid the task or to make the task more interesting. That shortcut backfires. The situation escalates through increasingly surreal and dangerous stages. The escalation threatens to destroy the park, the city, or reality itself. The problem is resolved, usually with help from skips. Everything goes back to normal. Benson yells at them. Just Set Up the Chairs is Season 1, Episode 2. It aired on September 13th, 2010, and it is the purest expression of this formula in the entire series. A birthday party is coming to the park. Everyone gets an interesting job, except Mordecai and Rigby, who are assigned to set up chairs. Just chairs, the simplest possible task. And in the process of reluctantly searching for chairs, they find abandoned arcade machines in a storage room. They start playing. Rigby, ignoring a warning note from Skips, connects a red wire to a blue wire inside a machine called Destroyer of Worlds. An 8-bit demon emerges. The park is terrorized. The party is ruined. The demon is defeated. Benson yells. That is the formula. And it worked brilliantly for 12 episodes. And then 28 more. And then 39 more. But here is the thing about formulas. They have a half-life. The first time you see the escalation from mundane to surreal, it is electrifying. The 10th time, it is satisfying. The 50th time, it is predictable. And the 100th time, if nothing has changed, it is boring. Every long-running show faces this problem. The formula that made you successful is also the thing that will eventually kill you if you do not find a way to evolve beyond it. Regular show's evolution beyond its formula was not a clean break. It was not a moment where the writers sat down and said, "We are done with standalone episodes. We are doing arcs now." It was gradual, incremental, almost invisible. The formula kept working. New episodes kept using it. But alongside the formula, something else started growing. Continuity, memory, the sense that these characters existed between episodes, not just during them. Caffeinated Concert Tickets is Season 1, Episode 3. It aired on September 21st, 2010. Mordecai and Rigby need money for fist pump concert tickets. They work overtime. They still do not have enough. They enlist some unexpected help. Everything escalates. The point of the episode is the escalation. What happened last week does not matter. What happens next week does not exist. The episode is a sealed unit, perfect and self-contained, like a snow globe. You shake it, watch the chaos settle, and then you put it back on the shelf. Compare that to what the show is doing by season 5. Laundry Woes is not just an episode. It is a chapter in the ongoing story of Mordecai's emotional life after Margaret. He drives hours to return a sweater she left behind. The sweater is not important. What is important is that Mordecai needs an excuse to see her, and the sweater gives him one. And when he gets there and sees her happy without him, the episode becomes about letting go, not in a general, thematic sense, in a specific, this is happening to this character right now sense. The episode requires you to know about Mordecai and Margaret's history. It requires you to have watched 4 seasons of build-up. It is not a snow globe, Duminy. It is a chapter in a novel. That transformation, from snow globe to novel, is what success enabled. Because you cannot write novel chapters if you do not know how many chapters you are going to get. A show in its first season cannot afford to build towards something that might not pay off, because there might not be a second season to pay it off in. But a show in its 5th season, a show that has been renewed multiple times, a show with millions of viewers and an Emmy on its shelf, that show can afford patience. It can plant a seed and trust that it will have time to water it. It can start a story in October and finish it in May. It can let a character's pain last longer than 11 minutes. This is what I mean when I say that success changed regular show, not by corrupting it, but by completing it. The show was always capable of depth. The characters were always capable of growth. The writers were always talented enough to tell longer, more complex stories. What they lacked, in the beginning, was permission. Permission from the network. Permission from the ratings. Permission from the economic reality of animated television, which says that a show must justify its existence every single season. Success granted that permission, and the show used it wisely. Death Punchies is Season 1, Episode 4. It aired on September 28, 2010. Rigby is tired of losing at Punchies to Mordecai. He discovers an advertisement for Death Kwon Do. He learns a forbidden punch. He uses it on Mordecai. Things escalate. The episode is funny and violent, and 11 minutes long, and it tells you everything you need to know about Mordecai and Rigby's dynamic in the first season. Mordecai is bigger. Mordecai is stronger. Rigby cannot beat him at anything physical. So Rigby cheats. He finds a shortcut, and the shortcut makes everything worse. Now think about what that dynamic looks like 6 years later. Rigby is still smaller. He is still weaker, but he has stopped cheating. He has stopped looking for shortcuts. He is going back to school. He is doing things the hard way. He is, for the first time in his life, trying to earn something rather than steal it. And Mordecai, the bigger one, the stronger one, the one who never had to cheat because he was already winning, is the one who cannot handle it. The dynamic has not reversed in terms of who is physically dominant. It has reversed in terms of who is emotionally dominant. And that reversal took 6 years to execute. 6 years of success. 6 years of trust between the show and its audience. 6 years of patient, incremental, almost imperceptible change. If any of this has resonated with you, subscribing helps us keep these conversations going. There is a moment in regular show the movie that reveals something about Mordecai and Rigby's friendship that the series had been hinting at for years without ever stating directly. The movie premiered on November 25, 2015, and it functions as both a standalone adventure and a deep excavation of the show's most important relationship. The plot involves time travel. A dying future version of Rigby arrives to warn the park workers about a threat called the Timonado, a temporal tornado created by an experiment that went wrong when Mordecai and Rigby were in high school. Their former volleyball coach and science teacher, Mr. Ross, has weaponized the Timonado. The park workers travel back in time to prevent the catastrophe. But the movie's real story is not about the Timonado. It is about a lie that Rigby told in high school that changed both of their lives. Here is what happened. Mordecai and Rigby both applied to college university. Mordecai got in. Rigby did not, because his grades were abysmal. And Rigby, terrified of losing his only friend, forged a rejection letter. He made it look like Mordecai had been rejected too. Mordecai, believing the letter, did not go to college. He ended up working at the park. His entire adult life, the life the audience has been watching for 5 seasons, was shaped by a lie his best friend told him in high school. Let that sit for a second. The show spent 5 years establishing Mordecai as the responsible one, the one who had it together, relatively speaking, the one who chose to work at the park while he figured out his next move. But the movie reveals that Mordecai did not choose anything. His choices were made for him by Rigby's fear. Rigby's terror of being alone was so powerful that he sabotaged his best friend's future to keep him close, and Mordecai never knew. This is not a small revelation. This is the kind of information that reframes everything. Every time Mordecai felt stuck at the park, every time he wondered why his life was not going anywhere, every time he looked at Rigby and felt a complicated mix of affection and frustration, all of that was happening inside a lie, and the lie was not told out of malice. It was told out of love. Desperate, selfish, understandable love. The kind of love that says, I need you more than you need your own future. The kind of love that is indistinguishable from cruelty. The movie forces Mordecai and Rigby to confront this, and the confrontation nearly destroys them. There is a moment where Mordecai, upon learning the truth, is so angry that he cannot speak. He does not yell. He does not throw a punch. He just looks at Rigby, and in that look is every year of his life that he cannot get back, every opportunity that was stolen from him by the person he trusted most. The show holds on that look. It does not cut away. It does not deflect with a joke. It lets the silence say what words cannot. And then, eventually, Mordecai forgives him, not because the lie was acceptable, not because Rigby's reasons justify what he did, but because the alternative to forgiveness is losing his best friend, and Mordecai, whatever his flaws, has never been willing to pay that price. He forgives Rigby the same way people in real life forgive the people who hurt them most. Not completely, not all at once, but enough to keep going. Enough to sit next to each other in the cart the next morning and pretend that everything is fine, even though both of them know that something has changed that can never change back. That story, the story of the forged letter, could only be told by a show that had earned the right to tell it. You need 5 years of audience investment in Mordecai and Rigby's friendship for the betrayal to land. You need the audience to believe, deeply and unquestioningly, that these two are best friends. Because the power of the reveal is not just that Rigby lied. It is that the friendship the audience loved was built on a foundation of deception. And the movie asks you to look at that foundation and decide whether the friendship is still real, whether love built on a lie is still love. Regular show says yes. The friendship is still real, the love is still love, but it is not simple anymore. It cannot be simple anymore. And the show, from this point forward, never pretends that it is. The production circumstances of the movie are themselves a testament to what success made possible. A television movie is not something that happens to struggling shows. It is something that happens to shows that have proven their value, that have demonstrated an audience large enough and loyal enough to justify the investment. Regular show, the movie, exists because the show was successful. And the movie uses that success to tell a story that enriches everything that came before it and transforms everything that comes after. There is a conversation that happens in every writer's room of every successful show, and it is a conversation that the audience never hears. The conversation is about fear, specifically, the fear of repetition, the fear that you have told all the stories your premise can support, and that everything from this point forward is a variation on something you already did. This fear is not irrational. It is a real danger. Many shows die from it, from the slow, grinding realization that they have nothing new to say and are saying the old things with decreasing conviction. Regular show faced this fear around season 4. The standalone formula was still producing good episodes, but the writers could feel the walls closing in. How many times can Mordecai and Rigby slack off and trigger a supernatural escalation before the structure becomes a prison? How many times can Benson yell before the yelling loses its impact? How many times can Skips know the answer before his omniscience becomes a crutch? The show's response to this fear was not to abandon what worked. It was to find new territory within the familiar landscape, and the most fertile territory it found was backstory, the past lives of its characters, the histories that had been implied but never explored. The show realized, somewhere around its fourth year, that it was sitting on a goldmine of untold stories. Every character had a life before the park. Every character had experiences that shaped who they became. And those experiences, if told well, could deepen the audience's connection to characters they already loved without changing the fundamental nature of the show. Weekend at Benson's is Season 3, Episode 12. It tells a small story about Mordecai and Rigby accidentally knocking Benson unconscious and trying to cover it up by dragging his limp body to a party at his neighbor's apartment. The episode is funny. It is absurd. It is classic regular show. But it also gives the audience a glimpse of Benson's personal life, of his apartment, of the neighbor he has a crush on, of the loneliness that defines his existence outside of the park. Benson goes home to an empty apartment. He has no wife, no children, no friends outside of work. The neighbor's party is the most exciting thing that has happened to him in months, and he was unconscious for it. The show does not comment on this. It does not add a somber musical cue or have another character remark on how sad Benson's life is. It just shows you. It shows you the empty apartment, the single-place setting, the neighbor he watches through the window, and it trusts you to feel the weight of it without being told to feel the weight of it. That trust, that confidence in the audience's ability to extract meaning from observation rather than explanation is something the show developed over time. The early episodes are more explicit. They tell you what they mean. The later episodes show you what they mean and let you sit with it. That shift from telling to showing is, in many ways, the most important creative evolution that success enabled. Because showing requires more screen time, more patience, more trust in the audience. Telling is efficient, showing is generous. And generosity, in storytelling as in life, requires security. You can afford to be generous when you know you are not going to be canceled next week. The Thomas arc is one of the show's most ambitious experiments with long-form storytelling, and it is the kind of experiment that only a confident, successful show would attempt. Thomas, a goat, is introduced in the Season 4 premiere, Exit 9B, as a new intern at the park. He is quiet, he is nervous, he is eager to please, he is, in every way, exactly what he appears to be. A young college student getting work experience. The audience accepts him at face value and moves on. For 2 full seasons, Thomas is a background character. He shows up, he helps out. He makes small contributions to episodes that are not about him. The audience, if they think about Thomas at all, thinks of him as a pleasant but minor addition to the cast. He is there, but he is not important. And then, in Season 6, the show reveals that Thomas is a Russian spy. The Real Thomas, aired in 2014. It carries one of the highest audience ratings in the series, and the reason it works so well is the gap. The gap between what the audience believed about Thomas for 2 years and what was actually true. Thomas was never a college intern. He was a spy named Nikolai, planted in the park as part of an operation to study and eventually steal the park's supernatural properties. Every friendly interaction, every helpful gesture, every moment of apparent sincerity was a performance. But here is where the show does something remarkable. It does not let the reveal be a simple betrayal. Thomas, it turns out, genuinely came to care about the park workers. His cover became real. The kindness they showed him, the way they included him, the fact that they treated him like family when he was there to exploit them, changed him. He was supposed to be using them. They ended up saving him. And when the moment comes to choose between his mission and his friends, Thomas chooses his friends. He betrays the government that sent him. He saves the park. And then he goes into hiding, disappearing from the show entirely. Think about the structural audacity of that. The show introduced a character, let him exist in the background for 2 seasons, and then used the audience's own disinterest in him as the foundation for a twist that works precisely because nobody was paying attention. The twist rewards attentive viewers, the ones who might have noticed small inconsistencies in Thomas's behavior, while also surprising everyone else. And the emotional payoff, the idea that genuine kindness can change someone even when they are determined not to be changed, is one of the show's most powerful arguments. That is a story that requires 2 years of setup, 2 years of patience, 2 years of a character existing in the margins of the show, being unremarkable, being forgettable. You cannot do that in a single season. You cannot do that if you are not sure you will be around long enough for the payoff. The Thomas arc is a monument to the creative possibilities that success creates. It is a story that could only be told by a show that had time. If you have made it this far, thank you. Subscribing truly does help. There is a version of this story where success ruins regular show. It is not hard to imagine. The show gets popular. The network orders more episodes. The writers, spread thin by the increased workload, start repeating themselves. The formula becomes a trap. The characters flatten. The surreal escalations become predictable. The show becomes a content factory, producing episodes at a pace that does not allow for depth or innovation. The audience, sensing the decline, starts leaving. The ratings drop. The show is canceled. Nobody remembers it with particular fondness. That version of the story is not hypothetical. It is what happens to most successful animated shows. The grind of production, the pressure to maintain quality across 30 or 40 episodes a season, the creative exhaustion of returning to the same world and the same characters year after year. These forces destroy more shows than any network note or ratings decline. They are the invisible killers of television, and regular show, by all rights, should have been vulnerable to them. The show produced 244 episodes across 8 seasons. The quality, while it fluctuated, as all quality does over that span, never truly collapsed. The show never had a bad season. It had weaker episodes, certainly. It had storylines that did not land, character beats that felt forced, escalations that were more silly than meaningful. But it never lost its identity. It never became something other than itself. And that consistency, maintained across 7 years and 244 episodes, is an achievement that does not get enough credit. The reason for that consistency, as best as anyone outside the writer's room can determine, is that the show's creative leadership never lost sight of what the show was about. Quintel and his team understood, at a level that seems almost intuitive, that regular show was not about the supernatural escalations. It was not about the villains or the action sequences or the cosmic mythology. It was about 2 friends in a park. Everything else, all the weirdness, all the spectacle, all the interdimensional chaos, existed in service of that central relationship. And as long as the show kept Mordecai and Rigby at the center, as long as it kept asking questions about who they were and who they were becoming, it had something to say. The formula could evolve. The scope could expand. The stakes could rise. But the heart of the show, 2 guys sitting on a couch, playing video games, trying to figure out their lives, that never changed. That is why the finale works. Because when Pops flies into a star and saves the universe, the show does not end on Pops. It ends on Mordecai and Rigby, on the lives they build after the park, on the people they become when the story is over. The cosmic battle is the climax. The friendship is the resolution. And the resolution matters more than the climax, because the show spent 7 years earning it. The cultural impact of regular show is difficult to measure in the way that cultural impact is usually measured, with merchandise revenue and social media followers. Regular show was never the biggest show on Cartoon Network. Adventure Time was bigger. It got more attention, more think pieces, more academic analysis. Regular show existed, for most of its run, in Adventure Time's shadow, as the slightly less celebrated sibling, the show that the network valued, but that the culture did not discuss with the same intensity. And yet regular show's legacy, measured in the way that legacies are actually built, through the lasting impact on the people who watched it, may be even more significant than its more celebrated contemporary, because regular show spoke to something that Adventure Time, for all its brilliance, did not quite reach. Adventure Time was about the end of the world, about a post-apocalyptic landscape rebuilt by magic and imagination. It was epic and mythic and vast. Regular show was about the end of your 20s, about the moment when you realize that you cannot stay at the park forever, that your friends are going to get married and move away and change in ways that you cannot predict or control, that the life you have, right now, the mundane, boring, beautiful life of hanging out with your best friend and doing nothing, is temporary, and that its temporariness is exactly what makes it valuable. That specificity, that grounded, human, deeply personal quality, is what gives regular show its staying power. The show is not about grand themes. It is about specific feelings. The feeling of being 23 and not knowing what you want to do with your life. The feeling of loving someone who does not love you back. The feeling of watching your best friend grow up faster than you and wondering if they are going to leave you behind. The feeling of working a job that does not matter and somehow finding meaning in it anyway. Those feelings do not expire. They are not tied to a specific decade or a specific generation. Every person who has ever been young and lost and stuck and scared recognizes them. And every person who watches regular show, whether they are 12 or 20 or 35, finds something in it that speaks directly to them. That universality is the final gift of success. By giving regular show the time to develop its characters, to deepen its themes, to evolve beyond its formula, success allowed the show to transcend the category of children's television entirely. Regular show is a children's show in the same way that The Catcher in the Rye is a young adult novel. Technically, yes. In practice, no. It is a show about the human experience, told through the language of animation, with all the freedom that language provides. And it earned the right to be that show by being successful enough to survive long enough to become it. There is a scene in Mordecai and the Rigbys that sets up a pattern the show would spend 7 years exploring. The episode is the season 1 finale. It aired on November 22nd, 2010. Mordecai and Rigby form a band. They cannot actually play. They sign up for an open mic night at the coffee shop. They plan to lip sync to a recording. The performance begins, and partway through, the deception falls apart. The lip syncing is exposed, the illusion crumbles, and the crowd turns on them. But the moment carries a strange honesty. In the wreckage of the performance, there is something genuine, something that the fake version could never have contained. That is the show's thesis, stated in the very first season, before anyone knew what the show would become. Authenticity over performance, truth over success, the willingness to be bad at something real rather than good at something fake. And the show itself embodied that thesis across its entire run. It was willing to be messy. It was willing to make choices that not everyone liked. It was willing to let its characters fail, to let its storylines take unexpected turns, to let its finale deny the audience the romantic resolution they wanted. It was willing to be honest, even when dishonesty would have been easier and more popular. That willingness is the deepest way that success changed regular show, not by making it more ambitious, or more emotional, or more serialized, although it did all of those things, but by giving it the security to be honest, to tell the truth about its characters, even when the truth was unflattering, to tell the truth about growing up, even when the truth was painful, to tell the truth about friendship, even when the truth was that friendship is not enough to save you from yourself, and that your best friend might be the person who hurt you most, and that you might forgive them anyway, because the alternative is being alone, and being alone is the one thing that neither Mordecai nor Rigby, for all their flaws, was ever willing to be. There is something that needs to be said about the voice actors and how their performances evolved alongside the show. Regular show's voice cast is one of the most distinctive in animated television, and the way those performances changed over 8 seasons mirrors the show's own transformation from comedy to something deeper. J.G. Quintel himself voiced Mordecai. This is not unusual in animation. Many creators voice their protagonists. But there is something specific about the way Quintel's performance evolved that is worth examining. In the early episodes, Mordecai's voice is bright, slightly exasperated, perpetually on the edge of a frustrated sigh. It is the voice of a young man who thinks he is too smart for his surroundings. There is a slight superiority in the tone, a sense that Mordecai believes he deserves more than what he has, even though he has done nothing to earn more. By the later seasons, the voice has changed. Not dramatically, not in a way that breaks the character, but the brightness has dimmed slightly. The exasperation has deepened into something that sounds more like weariness. The superiority is gone, replaced by something quieter, uncertainty maybe, or humility. The voice of a man who has realized that he is not too smart for his surroundings, that his surroundings are exactly what he deserves, and that this realization, while painful, is also the beginning of wisdom. Sam Marin voiced 3 characters, Benson, Pops, and Muscle Man. 3 characters who could not be more different. Benson's rigid fury, Pops's gentle bewilderment, Muscle Man's brash loudness. Marin's ability to inhabit all 3 voices, to make each one distinct and recognizable and emotionally resonant, is one of the great unsung achievements of the show. And his performances evolved too. Benson's anger, in the early seasons, is performed at full volume, almost cartoonishly intense. By the later seasons, the anger is still there, but it has cracks in it. You can hear the vulnerability underneath. You can hear the effort it takes Benson to keep being angry when part of him is just tired. William Salyers voiced Rigby with a nasal, hyperactive energy that perfectly captured the character's restless immaturity. But as Rigby matured, Salyers's performance matured with him. The hyperactivity remained, but it was tempered by moments of quietness, of reflection, of genuine emotional presence. The Rigby of Season 7, the Rigby who is going back to school and dating Eileen and trying to be better, sounds different from the Rigby of Season 1. Not because the voice changed, because the person behind the voice changed. Mark Hamill voiced Skips, the immortal Yeti. The calm, deep, slightly weary voice of a man who has seen everything and is surprised by nothing. Hamill's performance is remarkable for its restraint. In a show full of characters who express their emotions loudly and dramatically, Skips is the one who keeps everything inside. And Hamill communicates that interior life through the smallest possible vocal choices. A slight pause before a word, a barely perceptible sigh. The way he says, "I have seen this before," with a heaviness that suggests that seeing things before is not a comfort, but a burden. These performances are not separate from the show's evolution. They are the show's evolution, in its most intimate form. The writers can write deeper characters. The animators can draw more nuanced expressions. But the voice actors are the ones who breathe life into those characters, who make the audience believe that these drawings have inner lives and genuine emotions. And the fact that every major voice actor in regular show rose to the challenge of the show's increasing depth, adapting their performances to match the evolving demands of the material, is a testament to both their talent and the environment that the show's success created. Because here is the thing about voice acting in animation. When a show is new and uncertain, the direction tends to be broad. Keep it funny, keep it energetic, make sure the audience does not change the channel. But when a show is established, when it has proven its audience, when the creators have earned the trust of the network and the viewers, the direction can become more specific, more subtle, more demanding. A voice director can ask an actor to try a line with less energy, with more vulnerability, with a pause that lasts a beat longer than feels comfortable. And the actor can trust that the show will support that choice, that the context around the performance will make the subtlety land. That trust, between creator and performer, between show and audience, is a product of success. It cannot exist without it. The holiday specials of regular show are a fascinating case study in how success changes the types of stories a show is allowed to tell. In the first season, there are no holiday specials. The show is too new, too unproven, too uncertain of its future to commit to the kind of production schedule that holiday specials require. Holiday specials are planned months in advance. They require specific air dates. They demand promotional support from the network. They are, in every way, a vote of confidence in a show's longevity. By season 4, regular show had earned that confidence. The show's first Christmas special aired on December 3, 2012. It is a half-hour episode, double the show's normal length. It features an original story that combines the show's signature surreal humor with genuine holiday warmth. And it is, in a quiet way, a statement about what the show had become. Because a holiday special requires something that the show's early standalone episodes did not require. It requires the audience to feel something. Not just to laugh, not just to be entertained, but to feel the specific emotional quality that the holiday in question represents. Warmth, gratitude, togetherness, the sense that the people on screen, however absurd their circumstances, are a family. The Thanksgiving special aired on November 25, 2013, in Season 5. Mordecai and Rigby accidentally ruin Thanksgiving and must save the holiday before their families arrive. The episode is a comedy of errors, full of escalating disasters and last-minute saves. But underneath the comedy is something real. The idea that holidays matter, that the effort you put into bringing people together, even when everything goes wrong, even when the turkey is ruined and the house is on fire, that effort is its own form of love. And the episode treats that idea with a sincerity that the show's early seasons would not have risked. The holiday specials are the show at its most accessible and its most vulnerable. They are the episodes where the show drops its ironic distance and admits that it cares about its characters and wants the audience to care about them too. And the fact that the show could do this, that it could be sincere without being sentimental, warm without being saccharine, is a direct result of the emotional vocabulary it had developed over years of success. There is a thread that runs through every aspect of what success did to regular show, and it is the thread of trust. Trust between the creators and the network, trust between the show and its audience, trust between the writers and the voice actors, trust between the individual episode and the larger story it belongs to. In the beginning, there is very little trust. The show is new, the audience is new, the network is watching carefully, ready to intervene if the ratings dip or the content goes too far. Every episode is a test, every choice is scrutinized. The show cannot afford to take risks because the cost of failure is too high. But success builds trust. Each successful episode, each strong rating, each positive review, each renewed season deposits a small amount of trust into an account that the show can draw from later. And over time, that account grows large enough to fund increasingly ambitious withdrawals. The show can tell a two-part story. The show can devote an episode to a backstory. The show can let a character be sad for more than one scene. The show can introduce a mystery and wait 2 years to solve it. The show can send everyone to space. The show can kill its kindest character. Each of those choices required trust. And each of those choices, when they worked, built more trust. It is a virtuous cycle. Success breeds trust. Trust breeds ambition. Ambition breeds quality. Quality breeds more success. And the show, riding that cycle across 8 seasons, was able to do things that it never could have done in its first year. The Rigby-Eileen relationship is one of the most quietly revolutionary romantic arcs in animated television, and it exists entirely because of this cycle of trust. Eileen, a mole who works at the coffee shop alongside Margaret, is introduced early in the series as Rigby's unwanted admirer. She likes him. He does not like her. The dynamic is played for comedy, and the comedy works because Rigby's obliviousness to Eileen's feelings is both funny and slightly cruel. But the show, with the patience that success afforded, slowly transforms this dynamic. Not through a dramatic revelation or a forced romantic climax, through accumulation, through dozens of small moments scattered across multiple seasons, where Rigby and Eileen interact and the audience sees, even when Rigby does not, that they are good together, that Eileen makes Rigby calmer, that Rigby makes Eileen braver, that they complement each other in ways that neither of them fully understands. By the time Rigby admits his feelings for Eileen, the audience has been waiting for it for years, not in a frustrated, will they won't they kind of way. In a gentle, patient, almost tender kind of way, the audience can see what Rigby cannot see. And the pleasure of the resolution, when it finally comes, is not the thrill of a dramatic payoff. It is the satisfaction of watching someone figure out what you already knew. It is the pleasure of patience rewarded. Eileen does not nag Rigby into growing up. She does not issue ultimatums or make demands. She just exists, consistently and kindly, in his life. And her presence, over time, makes him want to be better. Not for her, for himself. Because she shows him, without ever saying it, that being better is possible. That the version of himself he presents to the world, the lazy, irresponsible, shortcut-taking slacker, is not all there is. That there is someone else inside him, someone capable and determined and worthy of love, and all he has to do is let that person out. Regular show never makes a speech about this. It never has a character sit Rigby down and tell him to get his act together because Eileen deserves better. It just shows you two people, episode after episode, season after season, gradually and imperceptibly and beautifully falling in love. And the beauty of it is that it happens so slowly that you barely notice it until it is already done. Until Rigby is going back to school and you realize, with a start, that the slacker you have been watching for 6 years has become a different person. And the different person is better. And the thing that made him better was not a lesson or a crisis or a magical intervention. It was love. Quiet, patient, undemanding love, the kind that does not announce itself, the kind that just shows up, day after day, and stays. That is the kind of story that only time can tell. And time is what success gives you. There is a question that I have been circling around throughout this entire analysis, and it is time to address it directly. The question is whether success improved regular show or whether it simply changed regular show, and whether those two things are the same. The honest answer is complicated. The early seasons of regular show are, in many ways, more purely enjoyable than the later seasons. They are funnier. They are more consistent. They have a clarity of purpose that the later seasons, with their serialized arcs and emotional complexity, sometimes lack. The formula, in its pristine early form, is a machine for generating joy. You sit down, you watch Mordecai and Rigby do something stupid. Things escalate. You laugh. The episode ends. You feel good. There is a simplicity to that experience that has genuine value. Not everything needs to be deep. Not everything needs to mean something. Sometimes you just want to watch a game of rock, paper, scissors summon a demon, and that is enough. The later seasons sacrifice some of that simplicity. They ask more of the audience. They require you to remember what happened last week, last month, last season. They reward patience and punish inattention. They are not the kind of thing you can put on in the background while you do something else. They demand engagement, and engagement, while valuable, is also effortful. There are days when you do not want effortful. There are days when you want easy, and the early seasons of regular show are easy in the best possible way. So the question of whether success improved the show depends on what you value. If you value consistency and simplicity and pure comedy, the early seasons are better. If you value depth and ambition and emotional resonance, the later seasons are better. And if you value the full journey, the complete arc from beginning to end, the slow transformation of a comedy into something that is comedy and tragedy and love story and coming-of-age narrative all at once, then you value the whole thing. You value the early seasons for what they were and the later seasons for what they became and the process of change that connects the two. I value the whole thing, and I think regular show, taken as a complete work, is one of the most remarkable achievements in the history of animated television. Not because every episode is great, not because the show never faltered or stumbled or made choices that did not work, but because the show committed to something that almost no animated show commits to: growth. Real, irreversible, meaningful growth. Of its characters, of its storytelling, of its ambition, of its understanding of what a cartoon can be and do and mean. That commitment is what success made possible. And that commitment is what makes regular show, years after its final episode aired, worth talking about. Worth analyzing. Worth letting the ideas settle into the quiet parts of your mind and rearrange things while you are not paying attention. You come back to them and something has shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way you can articulate, but you see your friends a little differently. You think about your own growth a little differently. You remember what it felt like to be 23 and lost, and think, for the first time, that maybe being lost was not the worst thing that could have happened to you. Maybe being lost was the thing that made finding yourself mean something. The Grilled Cheese Deluxe episode from Season 1 captures something essential about the show's earliest identity that illuminates, by contrast, everything the show became. It is Season 1, Episode 7. It aired on October 18, 2010. The premise is achingly simple. Benson sends Mordecai and Rigby to get him a grilled cheese sandwich from a specific restaurant. They lie about going and end up at a different restaurant. They encounter astronauts. Things escalate into a space mission. The grilled cheese sandwich becomes the center of an intergalactic incident. The episode is 11 minutes of pure comedic escalation. And the thing about it, the thing that separates it from the later episodes, is that nobody learns anything. Nobody grows. Nobody changes. The episode ends exactly where it began. Mordecai and Rigby are still the same people. Benson is still angry. The park is still the park. The universe expands and contracts and expands again. And when the dust settles, nothing has moved. That stasis is the engine of the early show. And it is not a failure of imagination. It is a deliberate creative choice. The show is arguing, in its first season, that life at the park is a closed loop. that nothing changes, that Mordecai and Rigby will always be Mordecai and Rigby, doing what they have always done, in the place they have always been. And there is a comfort in that, the comfort of predictability, the comfort of knowing that no matter how crazy things get, everything will return to normal. The park is permanent, the friendship is permanent, the loop is permanent. But loops are not permanent. That is the thing about loops. They feel permanent because they repeat, but repetition is not permanence. Repetition is the illusion of permanence, and the show, as it matured, began to crack that illusion. Slowly, carefully, one episode at a time, until, by the final season, the loop was broken completely. The park was in space. The characters were on a journey with a destination. The illusion of permanence was gone, and what remained was the terrifying, exhilarating, heartbreaking truth that everything ends, including the show itself. The awareness of ending is the most profound thing that success gave regular show. Not the fear of ending, the awareness, the consciousness, the ability to look at its own narrative and say, this has a shape, this has a beginning, and a middle, and, yes, an end, and the end matters. The end is where the meaning lives. The end is what retroactively transforms the beginning from a random collection of funny episodes into the first chapter of a story about growing up. Most animated shows never achieve this awareness. They run until they are canceled. They end abruptly, mid-story, mid-character arc, mid-sentence sometimes. The ending is imposed on them from outside. It is not a creative choice. It is an economic one. And so the ending, whatever it is, feels arbitrary. It could have happened a season earlier or a season later, and the show would be more or less the same. The ending does not mean anything. It is just where the money ran out. Regular show's ending means something. It means everything. Because the show knew it was ending. It had time to prepare. It had time to build toward a conclusion that would honor everything that came before. And the conclusion it built, Pops' sacrifice, the montage of futures, the statue in the park, the friends on the bench, is not just an ending. It is a thesis statement about what the entire show was about. It is the show looking back at itself and saying, this is what we were doing the whole time. We were telling a story about the love between friends who do not always deserve each other, but who choose each other anyway. About the love between a show and its audience. About the love between a group of creators and the world they built together. That ending is the ultimate product of success. Not just because success gave the show the time and resources to plan it, but because success gave the show the emotional capital to earn it. Every viewer who watched The Power in 2010 and kept watching through 7 more seasons contributed to the weight of that ending. Every episode they laughed at, every character they cared about, every moment that made them feel something they did not expect to feel, all of that accumulated into the gravitational force that makes the finale hit as hard as it does. The ending works because of everything that came before it. And everything that came before it exists because the show was successful enough to keep going. The David Bowie needle drop in the finale is the most discussed musical choice in the show's history, and it deserves examination, not as a moment of cool or nostalgia, but as a narrative decision. The song is Heroes. The version used is the original 1977 recording, and the choice to use it is so perfect that it feels inevitable, as if the show was always building toward the moment when this specific song would play over this specific montage. Heroes is a song about 2 people who, just for one day, pretend that they can be heroes, that they can overcome the forces arrayed against them, that they can stand at the wall and kiss and believe, however briefly, that the wall cannot touch them. The song is not triumphant. It is desperate. It is the sound of someone clinging to hope in a situation that does not warrant hope. And that desperation, that defiant optimism in the face of overwhelming evidence that optimism is foolish, is the emotional frequency of regular show's finale. Pops is the hero, but he is not a hero in the conventional sense. He does not defeat the villain through strength or cleverness or tactical superiority. He defeats the villain by loving him, by refusing to fight, by being, in the face of cosmic evil, exactly who he has always been. And the cost of this heroism is his life. He dies, the hero dies, and the people he saved go on living, growing old, having families, sitting on benches, remembering. Heroes plays over all of this, over the futures, over the aging, over the remembering. And the song, which was already about the temporary nature of heroism, about how you can only be a hero for one day, takes on a new meaning in this context. Pops was a hero for one moment of infinite love, and that moment was enough. It broke the cycle. It saved the universe. It made everything that followed possible. Every future Mordecai painted, every child Rigby raised, every morning Skips woke up and went to work at the park. All of it possible because of one moment of heroism that cost the hero everything. The show does not tell you this. It does not have a narrator explain the symbolism. It does not have a character say, "Pops died so that we could live." It just plays the song and shows you the futures and trusts that you, the audience, after 7 years and 244 episodes, understand what you are seeing. That you can feel the weight of it without being told to feel it. That the trust between the show and the audience, built over all those years, is strong enough to bear the weight of this moment without explanation. That trust is the legacy of regular show, not the episodes, not the characters, not the jokes or the escalations or the surreal imagery. The trust, the relationship between a show and the people who watched it, deepened and strengthened over 7 years of success, until the show could look at its audience in the final moments and say nothing and mean everything, and know that it would be understood. There is a tradition in regular show that runs from season 3 through season 8, and it is one of the quietest testaments to how success gave the show room to experiment. The Terror Tales of the Park Halloween specials, inspired by The Simpsons' Treehouse of Horror episodes, are annual anthology specials where the park workers tell each other scary stories. The first one aired in season 3. The sixth and final one aired in season 8, during the space arc. 6 consecutive years of Halloween specials. 6 years of a tradition that the audience came to expect and anticipate. 6 years of a recurring format that existed outside the show's continuity, where characters could die and consequences did not carry over. That last point is critical, because the Terror Tales episodes occupy a unique space in the regular show universe. They are the one place where the show can do anything, where there are no rules, where the writers can kill a character, end the world, or explore a premise so dark that the regular show could never accommodate it. And this freedom, paradoxically, reveals something about the constraints that success imposes on the rest of the show. When regular show became successful, when it had millions of viewers and network support and merchandise and an Emmy, the stakes of every creative choice increased. A bad episode in season 1 is a learning experience. A bad episode in season 5 is a disappointment. The show cannot afford to fail in the same ways it could when nobody was watching. And this awareness, this pressure to maintain quality, to protect the brand, to not alienate the audience, creates a kind of creative conservatism that is the shadow side of success. The Terror Tales specials were the valve that released that pressure. They were the space where the writers could be as wild, as dark, as experimental as they wanted, without risking anything. If a Terror Tales story did not work, it did not matter. It was not canon. It would not affect the next episode. It was a sandbox. And sandboxes, in a creative environment as high stakes as a hit animated series, are invaluable. But the Terror Tales episodes also did something more subtle. They gave the writers practice at telling different kinds of stories, at working in different genres, at exploring horror, science fiction, psychological thriller, and body horror within the framework of a comedy. And that practice bled into the regular episodes. The willingness to go dark, to let things get genuinely scary, to trust the audience to handle intensity. That willingness was cultivated in the Terror Tales episodes, and then deployed, more carefully, in the show proper. The space arc of season 8, with its existential stakes and its willingness to kill its protagonist, would not have been possible without the creative muscle the writers built in 6 years of Terror Tales specials. There is something worth examining about the way regular show handled the departure of characters, because it reveals a philosophy about storytelling that most animated shows never articulate, let alone practice. In most animated shows, characters do not leave. They are permanent fixtures. A supporting character introduced in season 1 will still be there in season 10, unchanged, ready to deliver their catchphrase whenever the plot requires it. This permanence is one of the conventions of the medium. It is what allows shows to maintain their identity across years and decades of production. Regular show broke this convention repeatedly. Margaret leaves. Thomas leaves. Characters come and go. Relationships end. And when they leave, the show does not replace them with equivalent characters. It does not fill the gap. It lets the gap exist. It lets the absence be felt. And the audience, accustomed to the permanence of animated casts, feels something unexpected. They feel loss, real loss. The kind of loss that comes not from a character dying in a dramatic scene, but from a character simply not being there anymore. From the chair that used to be occupied being empty. From the joke that nobody makes because the person who used to make it is gone. Margaret's departure after season 4 creates a gap in the show that the show never fully fills. CJ is introduced, and CJ is wonderful in her own right, but she is not Margaret. She cannot be Margaret. She is a different person with a different dynamic with Mordecai, and the show respects her enough not to try to make her a replacement. But the absence of Margaret lingers. It is there in every scene at the coffee shop. It is there in the way Mordecai's eyes sometimes drift toward the door, as if he is waiting for someone who is not going to walk through it. The show never explicitly draws attention to this. It just lets Margaret's absence exist as part of the emotional texture of the world. That is a sophisticated storytelling choice. It is the kind of choice that treats the audience as adults who can handle ambiguity and loss without having it explained to them. And it is the kind of choice that only a successful show can make, because an unsuccessful show would never risk removing a popular character. An unsuccessful show would keep Margaret around forever, mining the Mordecai-Margaret dynamic for romantic tension until the end of time, because that dynamic generates ratings, and ratings are the only thing that matters when you are fighting for survival. Regular show was not fighting for survival. It was fighting for something harder. It was fighting for integrity, for the right to tell the story the way the story needed to be told, even when the story required sacrifice. And the sacrifice, the willingness to let characters go, to let relationships end, to let the show change in ways that were not always popular. That sacrifice is what separates regular show from the dozens of animated shows that were successful and forgotten. Regular show was successful and remembered. It is remembered because it was brave enough to let things end. The relationship between regular show and its Cartoon Network contemporaries is worth examining because it illuminates the specific way that success changed the show in the context of a broader creative revolution. Regular show premiered in September of 2010, 5 months after Adventure Time launched in April of that year. Together, along with shows like Steven Universe and The Amazing World of Gumball, they constituted what has been called the Cartoon Network Renaissance, a period of creative vitality that transformed the network from a purveyor of conventional children's entertainment into a home for ambitious, artistically adventurous animated storytelling. Adventure Time was the louder sibling. It got the think pieces. It got the academic analysis. It got the cultural conversation in a way that regular show never quite did. And there is a version of this story where that disparity bothered the regular show team, where the knowledge that they were the second most discussed show on their own network created resentment or insecurity or a desperate desire to be noticed. But what seems to have happened instead is something healthier. Regular show and Adventure Time existed in a creative symbiosis. They pushed each other forward. Adventure Time's willingness to break narrative conventions gave regular show permission to experiment with its own structure. Regular show's grounded character work showed Adventure Time that emotional depth did not require cosmic stakes. They were two shows doing different things with the same freedom, and the competition, if it existed at all, was the kind of competition that makes both competitors better. The Cartoon Network Renaissance created a specific creative environment that success, specifically the success of Adventure Time and regular show as the twin pillars of the network's new identity, helped to maintain. When two shows on the same network are pulling 2 to 3 million viewers per episode, the network has a vested interest in supporting the creative culture that produced them. And that support extends beyond the two hit shows to every other show on the network. The success of Adventure Time and regular show created a rising tide that lifted all boats. It created an environment where Cartoon Network was willing to greenlight ambitious projects, to take risks on unconventional shows, to trust its creators in a way that the network had not done before. Regular show, in other words, did not just benefit from its own success. It helped create an ecosystem of success that benefited every show around it. And that ecosystem, in turn, raised the bar for what regular show itself had to be. When your network is also producing Adventure Time and Steven Universe, you cannot rest on your laurels. You cannot keep doing the same thing and expect it to be enough. You have to push. You have to grow. You have to find new ways to be excellent. The competition is not adversarial. It is aspirational. And regular show, pushed by the brilliance of its contemporaries, rose to the challenge season after season. There is a particular kind of scene that regular show mastered in its later seasons, and it is the kind of scene that exists at the intersection of comedy and tragedy in a way that very few shows have ever achieved. It is the scene where something genuinely sad is happening, where a character is experiencing real emotional pain, and the show does not undercut that pain with a joke, but it also does not abandon its comic identity. It holds both things at once. The sadness and the humor exist in the same space, not alternating but simultaneous. The audience laughs and feels something at the same time, and neither the laugh nor the feeling diminishes the other. Picking Up Margaret is Season 4, Episode 22. It aired on April 15, 2013. Mordecai offers to drive Margaret to the airport. She is visiting a university. This is, on one level, a road trip episode. Mordecai and Margaret in a car, dealing with obstacles, trying to get to the airport on time. The obstacles are absurd. There is escalation. There is danger. All of this is funny. But underneath the comedy is the knowledge, shared by the audience and dimly perceived by Mordecai, that this airport trip might be the beginning of the end, that Margaret might get into this university, that she might leave, that the thing Mordecai has been building toward for 4 seasons, the courage to tell Margaret how he feels, is running out of time. And the show lets that knowledge sit underneath every joke, every escalation, every absurd obstacle. The comedy is real. The dread is real. Both are happening at the same time. And when Margaret kisses Mordecai at the airport, the moment is both a triumph and a goodbye, and the show holds both of those things with equal weight. That scene, and scenes like it, are the most technically demanding kind of storytelling. They require the writers to hold 2 contradictory tones in their hands at the same time without dropping either one. They require the voice actors to infuse comedic delivery with emotional undercurrent. They require the animators to draw expressions that contain multiple feelings simultaneously. And they require the audience to be sophisticated enough to receive a moment that is funny and sad at the same time, and to understand that this is not a contradiction. This is what life feels like. Regular show's ability to create these moments improved dramatically over the course of its run. The early episodes are purely funny, or, in rare moments, purely emotional. They have not yet figured out how to be both at once. But by the middle seasons, the show has cracked the code. It has learned that comedy and emotion are not opposing forces. They are symbiotic. The comedy makes the emotion bearable. The emotion makes the comedy meaningful. And the combination, when it works, creates something that is greater than either of its components. Something that feels true. If you have been enjoying this, subscribing really does make a difference. There is one more thing that success did to regular show that needs to be addressed, and it is the most invisible thing of all. Success gave the show a sense of its own significance. Not in a pompous way, not in a self-important way, but in the quiet, steady awareness that what they were making mattered to people, that the stories they were telling were landing, that the characters they were creating were living in people's minds after the credits rolled. That awareness changes everything about the way you approach your work. Not because you try harder. You were already trying hard, but because you try differently. You try with the awareness that you are not just entertaining people, you are giving them something. A framework for understanding their own experiences. A language for feelings they did not have words for. A mirror that reflects their lives back at them in ways that help them see those lives more clearly. Regular show became that mirror for an entire generation of young people. It became the show that said, yes, your life is boring and confusing, and you do not know what you are doing, and that is okay. It became the show that said, your friendships are messy, and your relationships are complicated, and you are going to make mistakes that you cannot undo, and that is okay too. It became the show that said, you are going to grow up. whether you want to or not, and the person you become will be different from the person you are. And that is scary and beautiful and inevitable and, somehow, okay. That is a lot of weight for a cartoon about a blue jay and a raccoon who work at a park. And the show could not have carried that weight in its first season. It was too light then, too simple, too focused on being funny to be anything else. But success gave it mass. Success gave it depth. Success gave it the time and the resources and the audience and the trust to become something heavier, something that could hold the weight of genuine meaning. And the show, to its eternal credit, did not buckle under that weight. It stood up, it grew stronger, and it carried the meaning all the way to the end. The park in regular show is not just a setting, it is a state of being. It is the place between childhood and adulthood, between who you were and who you will become. It is the space where you are allowed to figure things out without the pressure of having it all together. It is the gap year, the transitional job, the apartment with the roommate you have known since kindergarten, the life you build out of proximity and habit, and the shared understanding that neither of you has anywhere better to be. Every character in regular show is in the park for a reason, and the reason is always the same. They are not ready for what comes next. Mordecai is not ready to be an artist. Rigby is not ready to be an adult. Benson is not ready to accept that his dreams of musical stardom are over. Muscle Man is not ready to stop performing and start being. Pops is not ready to face his destiny. They are all in the park because the park is safe. Because the park asks nothing of them except to show up and do the minimum. Because the park will always take them back, no matter how badly they mess up. And the show, across 8 seasons, slowly and gently and with infinite care, teaches each of them to leave. Not by pushing them out, not by making the park intolerable, but by helping them see that the park, for all its safety, for all its comfort, for all its surreal adventures and magical escalations and friendships that feel like they will last forever, is not enough, that there is more, that they deserve more, and that leaving the park, while terrifying, is the only way to get it. Mordecai leaves and becomes a painter. Rigby leaves and becomes a husband and father. Benson stays, but he stays differently. He stays because the park is where he belongs, not because he has nowhere else to go. The distinction matters. Staying because you choose to is freedom. Staying because you have to is prison. And Benson, by the end, has made his peace with the park. He has stopped seeing it as a reminder of everything he failed to achieve, and started seeing it as the place where he was needed, where he mattered, where his rage and his tenderness and his drum solos and his loneliness all added up to a life that, if not glamorous, was real. That is what success taught regular show to say, that a real life, a messy life, a life full of mistakes and false starts, and relationships that do not work out, and jobs that do not matter, and friends who drive you crazy, that life has value, not in spite of its imperfections, but because of them. The imperfections are the life. The rest is just the stuff that happens in between. There is a specific kind of silence in regular show that the early seasons do not have, and the later seasons cannot stop using. It is the silence after something important happens. The silence where, in another show, there would be dialogue, an explanation, a character saying what they feel so the audience does not have to infer it. Regular show, as it matured, learned to trust silence, to let a moment land and then not fill the space around it. To trust that the audience can read a character's face, can feel the weight of what just happened, can sit with the discomfort of not being told what to think. This trust in silence is directly related to the show's success, and specifically to the growing sophistication of its animation. The early episodes of regular show are well animated by any standard, but they are animated primarily for comedy. The characters' faces are expressive in the way that cartoon faces are expressive, which is to say, broadly, obviously, with emotions painted in large, readable strokes. Happiness is a wide smile. Anger is red-faced fury. Surprise is bulging eyes. These are the conventions of the medium, and they work perfectly for comedy. But as the show's ambitions deepened, as the stories started asking for emotions that were not simple or obvious, the animation had to deepen too. The characters' faces had to express things that did not have names. Not happiness or anger or surprise, but the space between those things. The moment after anger, where you are not angry anymore, but you are not at peace either. The moment before sadness, where you know it is coming, but it has not arrived yet. The look on someone's face when they are watching something they love disappear, and they know they cannot stop it, and they are not ready, but they are watching anyway. Regular shows animators learned to draw those moments, and the writers learned to write scenes that required them. And the voice actors learned to perform in ways that left room for the animation to do the emotional work. And all of this accumulation of craft across every department, this rising tide of sophistication that lifted the entire production, was enabled by success. By the stability that success provides. By the continuity of working with the same team, the same characters, the same world for years, until everyone involved understands the show so deeply that they can communicate in shorthand. Until the writer does not need to describe the expression on Mordecai's face in the script, because the animator has drawn Mordecai's face 10,000 times and knows what it looks like when he is pretending to be fine and is not. That institutional knowledge, that accumulated craft, is something you cannot buy and cannot rush. It can only be earned, season by season, episode by episode, frame by frame. And it is, in many ways, the most valuable thing that success gave regular show. Not money, not episodes, not freedom, knowledge. The deep, embodied, intuitive knowledge of what this show is and what it can do. Shared across an entire production team, refined over years of collaboration, and deployed with increasing precision as the stories demanded more and more from the craft. There is a way to watch the progression of regular show's visual storytelling that mirrors the progression of its narrative storytelling. In the early episodes, the camera, if we can call it that in animation, is functional. It shows you what you need to see. Characters in a room, characters outside, the park, the house. The shots are competent and clear, and they serve the comedy. By the later seasons, the camera has become a storytelling tool in its own right. The way a scene is framed communicates information that the dialogue does not. A wide shot of the park at sunset, with two small figures sitting on a bench, says something about loneliness and companionship that no line of dialogue could say as efficiently. A close-up on Mordecai's hands, clenching and unclenching, while he talks to CJ in a calm voice, tells you that his body is saying something different from his words. A slow pan across an empty room, lingering on the objects that a departed character left behind, tells you about absence without ever naming it. These are not revolutionary techniques. Live-action filmmakers have been using them for a century. But in animated television, where the camera has to be deliberately constructed rather than simply pointed, every visual choice requires effort and intention, and the willingness to invest that effort to frame a scene for emotional impact rather than just narrative clarity is itself a product of the show's success. Because those choices take time, they take planning, they take conversations between directors and storyboard artists and animators about what a scene is really about and how the visuals can express that meaning. And those conversations, in the early seasons, when the show is just trying to be funny and get renewed, do not happen. They do not need to happen. The comedy does not require them, but the later seasons require them. The stories the show is telling, stories about loss and growth and the terrifying passage of time, demand visual storytelling that matches their emotional complexity. And the show's production team, empowered by success, stabilized by years of collaboration, confident in their collective craft, rises to that demand. The visual storytelling of regular show's final seasons is some of the most emotionally sophisticated work in the history of animated television. Not because it is technically complex, because it is emotionally precise. Every shot serves the story. Every composition tells you something about how the characters feel. Every use of space and light and color and movement communicates meaning that words alone could not convey. That precision is the final gift of success. The gift of a team that has worked together long enough to become great. Not individually great, although they are that too. Collectively great. Great in the way that a band is great after years of playing together, when the musicians can anticipate each other's choices, can respond to each other in real time, can create something that is larger than the sum of its parts because the parts have learned to function as a whole. Regular Show's production team was that band, and success gave them the years they needed to become it. Before we wrap up, if you have been enjoying this, subscribing really does make a difference. There is one final dimension of regular show's evolution that success made possible, and it has to do with the show's relationship to art itself. This might sound abstract, but it is not. It is specific, it is visible, and it changes the way you understand everything the show did. Mordecai, in the show's mythology, is an artist. He went to art school. He dropped out. He ended up at the park. And for most of the series, his artistic identity is treated as a detail, a piece of backstory that explains how he ended up working as a groundskeeper. It is not central to his character in the way that Benson's drumming is central to Benson's character. It is not a wound. It is not a dream. It is just a fact. Mordecai studied art. He stopped studying art. He works at the park now. But in the finale, in the flash-forward montage set to Heroes, the show reveals that Mordecai becomes a painter. Not a famous painter, necessarily, not a rich painter, just a painter. A person who makes art. And the art he makes is of the park, of his friends, of the life he lived during the years the audience spent watching him. Mordecai paints the park the same way Quintel animated the park. He turns his ordinary, mundane, beautiful life into something that other people can see and feel and connect with. He does with a canvas what the show did with a television screen. That parallel is not accidental. J.G. Quintel is an artist who went to art school, who made a student film, who ended up working at Cartoon Network, who turned his experiences into a show that millions of people loved. Mordecai is an artist who went to art school, who dropped out, who ended up working at a park, who eventually turned his experiences into paintings that mean something. The creator and the creation mirror each other. And the finale's revelation that Mordecai becomes a painter is, in some quiet way, Quintel telling his own story. Telling the audience that the years they spent watching these characters were not wasted time. That the mundane experiences of being young and lost and stuck can become, if you pay attention to them, if you take them seriously, if you treat them with care and honesty and love, the raw material for something lasting, something real, something worth making. That is the deepest thing success did to regular show. It proved that the show's own thesis was true. The show argued, from its very first episode, that the mundane contains the extraordinary, that boring lives are full of hidden meaning, that two guys working at a park is not nothing. It is everything, if you look at it the right way. And then success proved it, because regular show was, at its core, a show about two guys working at a park, and it became extraordinary. It became meaningful. It became art, not because it transcended its premise, but because it fulfilled it. Because it looked at its own mundane setup, two slackers at a park, and found within it a story about love and friendship, and growing up, and losing things, and finding things, and the terrifying beauty of becoming who you are. The show did not need a bigger premise. It needed more time with the premise it had. And success gave it that time. There is a conversation to be had about whether regular show could exist today, in the current landscape of animated television, and what that says about the specific historical moment that made the show possible. The 2010s were a unique period for American animation. The Cartoon Network Renaissance, fueled by Adventure Time and Regular Show and Steven Universe and Gumball, created an environment where animated shows were given the freedom to experiment, to mature, to push boundaries in ways that the medium had rarely seen. This was not inevitable. It was the product of specific people making specific decisions at a specific network at a specific time. And the success of those shows, the ratings and the awards and the cultural conversation they generated, justified those decisions and created a self-reinforcing cycle of creative ambition. Regular Show was a product of that cycle. It could not have existed without it. The network's willingness to greenlight a show based on a student film about a hallucinogenic gas station experience, the creative freedom that allowed Quintel and his team to push the TV PG rating to its limits, the patience that allowed the show to evolve from a comedy into something deeper across 8 seasons, all of that was the product of a specific institutional culture that valued creator-driven storytelling and trusted its artists to deliver. And the success of Regular Show, in turn, reinforced that culture. Every Emmy nomination, every ratings milestone told Cartoon Network that the gamble was paying off, that trusting creators was good business, that investing in ambitious, unconventional animated storytelling was not charity. It was strategy. And that strategy worked. For a decade, Cartoon Network was the most creatively vibrant network in American animation, and Regular Show was one of the pillars that held that edifice up. The show's success was not just its own. It was shared. It belonged to the network, to the creative team, to the audience, to the cultural moment that made it possible. And the way that success changed the show was not just a story about one cartoon getting better over time. It was a story about an entire medium getting better. About animated television proving, once and for all, that it could be as deep, as complex, as emotionally rich as any other form of storytelling. Regular Show was one piece of that proof, an important piece, a beautiful piece, but a piece nonetheless, embedded in a larger mosaic of creative achievement that defined a decade. There is something worth saying about the way Regular Show handles the concept of work, because it is central to the show's identity, and because the way the show treats work changes dramatically as success reshapes the series. In the beginning, work is the enemy. Work is what Mordecai and Rigby are avoiding. Work is the thing that Benson demands and they refuse. Work is boring. Work is pointless. Work is the thing standing between them and the video games and the hanging out and the doing nothing that they would rather be doing. The show's comedy engine depends on this antagonism. If Mordecai and Rigby liked their jobs, there would be no conflict, no escalation, no show. But as the series progresses, the show's relationship to work becomes more nuanced. The work itself does not change. It is still setting up chairs and mowing lawns and cleaning fountains. What changes is the meaning attached to the work. In the early seasons, work has no meaning. It is pure drudgery, endured only because Benson will fire them if they do not do it. But by the later seasons, the work has become a container for something else. The work is where the relationships happen. The work is where Mordecai and Rigby spend time together. The work is the excuse for being at the park, and the park is where their lives unfold. The work, which seemed like nothing, turns out to be everything. Not because the work itself matters, but because the people you do it with matter. And you would not have those people in your life if you did not have the work. This is one of the most quietly profound things Regular Show has to say, and it is a thing that the show could only say after years of success had given it the perspective to see its own premise clearly. The boring job that you complain about every day, the job that seems like a waste of your potential, the job that you fantasize about quitting, that job is the frame around the picture of your life. The frame is not the picture, but without the frame, the picture has no shape. It falls apart. It becomes a loose collection of moments rather than a coherent story. The frame gives the picture its boundaries. And boundaries, as every artist knows, are where creativity begins. Mordecai and Rigby's job at the park gives their friendship its shape. Without the park, they would just be two guys who hang out. With the park, they are two guys who share a life, who have a routine, who have a boss they hate and coworkers they love, and a rhythm to their days that is boring and precious and ordinary and, when seen from the right distance, beautiful. The show arrives at this understanding gradually, over the course of 8 seasons. It does not state it as a thesis. It does not have a character deliver a monologue about the meaning of work. It just shows you, episode after episode, year after year, two guys who complain about their jobs and who would be lost without them. And by the end, when the park is launched into space and the job is taken away and the routine is shattered, the audience feels the loss. Not the loss of the work itself, the loss of the frame, the loss of the structure that held everything together, the loss of the mundane, boring, beautiful thing that made all the extraordinary things possible. That understanding, that appreciation of the ordinary as the container for the extraordinary, is the show's deepest theme. And it is a theme that success, paradoxically, helped the show articulate. Because success is itself a transformation of the ordinary into the extraordinary. Regular Show started as an ordinary cartoon. Two guys at a park, 11-minute episodes, a formula, a cast, a network, nothing special. And then success found it, and the ordinary cartoon became extraordinary, became meaningful, became important, became the kind of thing that people make long video essays about. The show's own story mirrors its characters' stories. The mundane became magic. The regular became remarkable. The show about nothing became a show about everything. And that is perhaps the most fitting thing of all. That a show called Regular Show, A show that announced in its very title that it was ordinary, that it was normal, that it was nothing special. That show turned out to be one of the most extraordinary animated series ever made. The title is not ironic. It is not a joke. It is the point. The regular is the show. The show is the regular. And the regular, once you stop to really look at it, once you give it the time and attention it deserves, once you let it unfold across 8 seasons and 244 episodes and 7 years of your life, is anything but regular. There is a version of you that has never seen regular show. Maybe that is the version listening to this right now, drifting off, following the sound of these words into something warm and quiet. If that is you, here is what I want you to know. The show starts simple. 2 friends, a park, a boss who yells, a coworker who makes bad jokes, an immortal yeti, a man with a head shaped like a lollipop. The situations are absurd, the humor is sharp, and the episodes are 11 minutes of pure, escalating chaos that always resolve in time for the next one. You will laugh. You will be entertained. You will think, this is a good cartoon. And then, if you keep watching, something will happen. It will happen so slowly that you will not notice it. The characters will start to feel like people. The episodes will start to feel like chapters. The jokes will start to have shadows behind them, just barely visible, just enough to make you lean forward. And one day, an episode will end, and you will sit there for a moment, in the silence after the credits, and realize that you are not just watching a cartoon anymore. You are watching a story, a real story, about real things, told by people who care about what they are doing, and who have earned the right to tell it. That moment is the moment that success made possible. The moment when the show becomes something more than what it started as. The moment when the formula cracks open and the depth pours out, and you realize that the depth was always there, underneath the surface, waiting for someone to have enough time and enough courage and enough trust to let it show. And here is what is strangest about that moment. It does not feel like a rupture. It does not feel like the show suddenly became serious, or suddenly became deep, or suddenly became something it was not before. It feels like recognition, like the show was always this way and you just were not paying close enough attention. Like the depth was always there, in the pauses between the jokes, in the way Mordecai's voice drops half a register when he is pretending not to care, in the way Benson looks out the window of his office at the park he has given his life to, in the way Skips moves through the world with the weight of centuries on his shoulders and never once complains about it. The depth was always there. Success just gave the show enough time to show it to you. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That is the nature of depth. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself. Slowly, patiently, one layer at a time. Like a painting that looks simple from across the room, but contains entire worlds when you step close enough to see the brushstrokes. Regular show is that painting. And success gave you the years you needed to step close enough to see the brushstrokes, to see that every line was deliberate, that every color was chosen, that every character, every relationship, every escalation, every joke, every silence was placed where it was for a reason. Not because the show was pretentious or self-important, because the people who made it cared, deeply, quietly, stubbornly. They cared about this world they had built and the people who lived in it, and the audience who watched them, and the story they were telling. And success, which could have made them lazy, which could have made them complacent, which could have convinced them that they had already done enough, instead made them care more. Because success showed them that the caring was working, that the audience was receiving what they were giving, that the depth they were digging was not wasted, that someone, somewhere, was listening and feeling something true. Regular show had that time. It had that courage. It had that trust. And the show it became, the show that ends with Pops flying into a star, and David Bowie singing, and friends growing old, and a statue in a park, that show is worth every minute you give it. Whether your eyes are open or closed, whether you are watching or listening, whether you are fully awake or drifting on the sound of these words, letting them carry you somewhere warm and quiet and safe, the way the park always did for Mordecai and Rigby, the way it does for everyone who finds it. The park is always there. The bench is always there. The friends are always sitting together, even when they are apart. And the show, this strange, beautiful, imperfect, ambitious, heartbreaking, hilarious show is always there too, waiting for you to come back, waiting for you to sit down, waiting for you to stay, for one more episode, one more season, one more moment in a place where the mundane and the extraordinary are the same thing, and the only thing that matters is the people you share it with. There is one last thing to say about how success changed regular show, and it is the simplest thing. The hardest thing to articulate because it is so obvious that it hides in plain sight. Success let the show finish. That sentence sounds redundant. Of course a show has to finish. Every show finishes. But the way a show finishes matters more than most people realize. Most shows do not finish. They stop. They are canceled. They run out of money or audience or institutional support, and they end. Not because the story is over, but because someone decided it was no longer worth telling. The story does not conclude. It is interrupted. And the interruption, however inevitable, is a kind of violence. It is the amputation of a narrative limb. The story was going somewhere, and now it is not. And the somewhere it was going will never exist. Regular show was not interrupted. It was concluded. The show knew its ending was coming. Cartoon Network announced that Season 8 would be the last. And that announcement, that warning, that gift of time, allowed the show to do what very few animated shows ever get to do. It allowed the show to decide what its story was about. Not in retrospect, not in the kind of revisionist mythology that creators construct after the fact, when they claim that they always knew how it would end. Regular show decided, in real time, with full awareness of what was happening, what the story of these characters was really about. And then it told that story, fully, completely, without compromise. The space arc of Season 8 is not a desperate scramble to wrap things up. It is a deliberate, architecturally planned conclusion that addresses every major character, resolves every significant arc, and makes a final statement about the show's themes that retroactively enriches every episode that came before it. Mordecai finds his vocation, Rigby finds his family, Benson finds his peace. Muscle Man finds his depth, Skips finds his continuity, and Pops finds his purpose. Every character arrives somewhere, and the somewhere they arrive feels earned, because the show earned it, season by season, episode by episode, for 7 years. That is what success gave regular show in the end. Not more time, not more money, not more freedom. Destination, a place to arrive, a final image to leave in the audience's mind. A statue of a kind man in a park where two friends once worked, surrounded by the evidence that the people who passed through that park went on to live real, full, imperfect, beautiful lives. That image is the whole show. 8 seasons, 244 episodes, 7 years, and it all leads to a statue and a bench and a group of old friends and the quiet, devastating, affirming knowledge that the best things in your life are temporary, and that their temporariness is not a tragedy. It is a gift, because if they lasted forever, you would take them for granted. And the people at the park, the people on this show, deserved better than to be taken for granted. The legacy of regular show is still being written. The show found new audiences on streaming platforms years after it ended, proving that its appeal was never limited to the Cartoon Network audience of the 2010s. The themes it explored, growing up, letting go, finding meaning in the mundane, loving people who are hard to love, doing the hard thing when the easy thing is right there, those themes are timeless. They will resonate with every generation that discovers the show, because every generation has its Mordecais and its Rigbys. It's people who are stuck. It's people who are pretending to be something they are not. It's people who are need a push, or a loss, or a friend, or all three, to become who they are supposed to be. What success did to regular show was not simple. It was not a single change, a single moment, a single decision. It was a process. A slow, messy, beautiful process of transformation that took 7 years and 244 episodes and the combined effort of dozens of writers and artists and voice actors and producers and network executives who, whatever their disagreements about content and tone and direction, all believed that this show was worth investing in. Success gave regular show more episodes, and more episodes gave the show more room to breathe, and more room to breathe gave the characters more space to grow, and more space to grow gave the writers permission to dig deeper, and digging deeper gave the audience something they did not know they wanted, which was a cartoon that treated them like adults even when it was being absolutely, gloriously ridiculous. Success gave regular show an audience, and having an audience gave the show accountability, and accountability forced the show to take its own characters seriously, and taking its characters seriously meant giving them real emotions and real consequences and real relationships that changed over time rather than resetting to zero at the end of every episode. Success gave regular show time, and time gave the show the ability to tell a story that could only be told over years, a story about the slow, imperceptible, irreversible process of becoming a different person than you were when the story started. And success gave regular show an ending, a real ending, an ending where a lollipop-headed man flies into a star to save the universe, and Heroes plays, and everyone you have been watching for 7 years gets to grow old, and the park is still there, and the statue of Pops is still there, and the show looks at you one last time and says, that is the whole story. That is what it was about, not the magical keyboards or the interdimensional portals or the death-defying stunts. The people, the way they changed, the way they stayed the same, the love that survived everything, even the things that should have destroyed it. Success changed regular show, and the way it changed it is the best argument anyone has ever made for why success, when it finds the right people, is not the end of something great. It is the beginning of something greater. That is a show worth drifting off to, worth letting the words wash over you as you close your eyes and think about the people in your own life who changed you, who grew up alongside you, who left and came back and left again, and never really left at all, because the park is always there, and the statue is always there, and the friends are always sitting on that bench, remembering. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.